That spirit caused me to realize that regardless of our age, regardless of our body and what our body will do for us, that it is our spirit and our mind that first determines what is possible and will give us the determination for what can become probable. When we determined that we were going to do we gathering, apart from the ability to bring people together back to the parishes of their birth, we felt that we had to have a component that allowed conversation to take place. We have had to express the view internationally that the time for dialogue is never over. And we've done so in circumstances where people are disposed or inclined to want to utilize other mechanisms that may regrettably lead to loss of property or loss of life. That people too often in today's world are subject to narrow casting. And what do I mean by narrow casting? That we listen to what we want to hear because there is so much choice that we can be completely consumed by only the things that we like or the things that accord with what we are familiar with or want to hear. But that is not our reality. We live with people that have different views, that look different from us, that practice different religions, that behave differently. But in understanding that, we can either choose to focus on the differences that separate us, or we can remember that we both have two eyes, and two ears, and a nose, and a mouth, and in most instances, have bodily parts that are the same in terms of organs, have the ability to be able to celebrate and to emote. And those are the things that unite us. So what is our choice? What can we focus on that allows us to see the commonalities among each other while at the same time respecting the differences that we have, each of us? We live in a world today where perhaps the greatest threat to global stability and civilization is not in the area of the economy, but is in the area of religion. We live in a world where we have not yet come to terms with how to bridge the differences. But the one thing I know, and we have learned it perhaps on 166 square miles better than most, even if we don't always want to confront it, is that dialogue and conversation first outlines what our respective positions are. And once we can have that, then we can start to refine the mission as to where we need to go. As Bajans would tell you, for my one part, I believe that we have to up our game. And we have to up our game, and I say so not in a disrespectful way, but we have to recall that there are others doing much of what we do, and people have choices. And we have to up our game first for ourselves, and then for those who want to do business or who want to interact with us at different levels. Equally, we have to celebrate that amongst us, we already have people who have excelled. And how do we use these persons who have excelled to inspire others who are still trying to figure out where do they fit in this place? And how can they make a difference? How can they do things differently? How can they innovate? How can they even fit in some instances? And I want, every time I come to St. Lucie, I like to sit down, but not from up there. And I can do this because I can't see people with those lights. And I need to see some people. But I want us to begin a conversation nationally and to continue to talk with each other, because that is the only way we are going to build the consensus for movement. And I share with you that when we became the government in 2018, the very first meeting on the Monday morning after the cabinet was sworn in was with the social partnership. The labor unions, all of them, the private sector associations, organizations, all of them, representatives of the government and the cabinet. And the first question I asked was, because the biggest problem facing the country was the value of the Barbados dollar. And once we were able to establish who in here wants to save the dollar, then we go around the room and start to work out what are your ideas for it, what are yours, what are yours, what are yours. And by the time we finished the morning session, we realized that 75 to 80% of the suggestions actually coalesce. And if they coalesce, the hardest part of the mission is overcome, which is setting out the roadway, the pathway towards being able to achieve the mission. Well, I'm happy that we have achieved that mission. But the next mission now is, how do we become world class? How do we up our game? And recognizing that I may start this conversation, I would love to finish it, inshallah, but I may or may not. But this country must finish it. This country must pause and begin to understand that we coasted for too long in the last 2 decades, and that we have to dig deep down now to put in the early work for the next 50 years, and that we have to start to understand that 50 years really is not even a long horizon. But at the very least, we must be prepared to stay the course if we are going to change the reality and the experience of these persons. Now, I've asked for young people, because those older, like me, might have somebody visiting me 50 years from now, as I did this evening, if I'm around. But those who are younger, like you, Puffy, and others in here, Matthew, you guys, more likely than not, are going to be living. And you guys need to be able to start to craft the kind of Barbados and the kind of world that you want to live in. And I say world because we've been consistent since 2006 in making the point that we have to produce global citizens, but with Barbadian roots. We have been a country that has been accustomed to seeing people leave our shores and do well. Last independence, we were able to accord to Eric Holder this nation's highest award in the freedom of Barbados for his achievements throughout with respect to the law and becoming the first Black Attorney General of the United States of America. But not just that achievement, but the substantive achievements as Attorney General that he has made, and the continued work in redistricting to ensure that populations are not marginalized and that the franchise of the vote is not devalued or minimized. There are others who have not been born here, but have adopted here as their homeland and have made a fundamental difference to this country. We want to thank you. And then there are others who have come by descent, and there are others who have come by marriage, and there are simply others who have come by choice. I am not sure that we understand how blessed we are as a people and as a nation. But in understanding how blessed we are, Karen Goodridge, and I thank you for once again accommodating us, it is important to understand that that house, however pretty it is, if it is not maintained, it's not going to work for those who live in it, and it's not going to survive. If you don't flush the toilets regularly, they're going to stop working after a few months. If you don't turn on the taps regularly, they're going to stop working after a few months. If you don't clean areas, the dust eventually causes the wood to degrade. And once the wood starts to degrade, the water starts to get in, and a whole insidious process of rotting starts. Why this conversation? Because we have to open the windows to the nation and air the house. We have to open the windows to the nation and air the house of Barbados. And we will do so not just by hearing the traditional voices who people, the leadership of this country and the parliament and the church and the private sector and the unions, but by allowing all voices to start to contend. Jason, your perspective as a young Barbadian that has known what it is to come to leadership at an early age, of men, in some instances older than you, in countries that you never perhaps dreamt that you would have to be functioning from. That is a story that has to be told in order for other young people to understand what is possible and where you can go. Puffy, yours, with respect, to being able to do it through music and to do it in a completely different dynamic is one that has to be told. There's a young Barbadian lady who has become the first head of a college at Cambridge as a black woman. And I can go on. There's a young Barbadian man who is at the forefront in Singapore in artificial intelligence. I was in Abu Dhabi and Dubai for 2 days this week. And as I walked in the Dubai World Ports, one of the first people that met me is a Barbadian woman who is heading up HR in that office. I didn't expect to meet her. So that the point that I'm making to us all is that if we are going to inspire a people to a higher calling, we have first to hear what is in people's heads, to listen, and then to begin the conversation. I've spoken about some of the positive and inspirational things, but there are some things that are of concern to us too. And then how do we bridge the gap where that gap has not been bridged in the house or in the school or in the church for those particular individuals who may not essentially be bad people, but they've not been taught that there's a time and a place for things. And how do we continue to use the media that we have, Alison, in a way that it used to be used 30, 40 years ago to reinforce language first and foremost? Because language is a tool that we use to express ourselves and to resolve conflict and to indicate what we want. But how do we use it also to educate? And I've asked my press secretary to launch 2 major public education courses this year. One is time and place, and the other one is one that goes far beyond that. And it has 2 words: how to. How to. We may well teach people how to get a mortgage, how to learn to play and be a DJ, how to take care of my responsibilities as a mother with children that may be disadvantaged, how to do so many different things that people may not necessarily know on their own, but which the country needs to share the knowledge in order to empower people. The last point that I'd like to make before opening up the floor is that we need to do this by strengthening the units that lift the nation. I spoke, I think, when I did the New Year's message about being able to help the 650 most vulnerable families in this country. And people ask why. If we can secure a family, then the family is going to secure all of the members in it, and then their neighbors. And then in some instances, they'll go beyond their immediate family and neighbor to the rest of the community and to the rest of the country. The family is the most empowering unit as human beings that we have. And we have to therefore recognize that if it takes a village to raise a child, then it takes a nation to save our families. And I want Barbados to unite, Barbadians to unite, and to recognize that it is our solemn duty to be able to take care of each other. Not by handing out per se, because the money side of it can be raised and can be done. But it's about holding people's hands and helping people process decisions, helping people understand how to get through problems. One of the reasons why I want BCL cricket back again, strong in this country, is because it gives us a space where people from different backgrounds and different races and different ages can come together and get to know each other. And in knowing each other, all of a sudden a fellow who is 16 says to a man who is 40 something, who is there playing cricket with him every week, and who the boy has no male presence in the house, and he has a problem because he gone and get a girl pregnant and he don't know what to do. Don't have no money, don't have no job, don't know where to turn, don't know how to talk to his mother or the grandmother or the sister. But if he's in a space where he's interacting with men who are open and who are caring, then he's in a position to say, so and so, so and so, so and so, I could talk to you. And all of a sudden, the dynamics of the society start to change. So as we open up the windows to the nation to allow air to come through, let us also build the platforms that allow people of different backgrounds to develop relationships, to be able to understand that in life, anyone who does not ever express doubt is not human. At some point, people need people to speak with and to understand what they're going through. And this is the kind of caring society that I want us to engender. But I know this, as much as I want it, or as much as a few of you in here may want it, it will not happen by serendipity or by accident. It is only going to happen when many hands make light work. And many hands can make light work by supporting those families that are tottering or have fallen down. And when they stand back up, what are they then doing? Helping to lift the weight to make sure that many hands make light work on this mission to make Barbados the best place that we can make it. Barbados must work for Bajans, for Caribbean people, and for all who visit it. Barbados must also ensure that we can create a space where people feel safe, where they're comfortable, where they're educated, where they're healthy, where they have access to the basic opportunities that can make a difference in their lives. Barbados must stand for something among Bajans, but equally internationally, so that people understand that. You know how many times I go into meetings and people want you vote internationally or whatever? I've got very clear in telling them we don't ball googlies. We don't ball googlies. We ball in the ball very straight. And why? Because the relationship matters, not the transaction. The relationship matters, not the transaction. And the relationship must matter because trust is one of the most important assets that a nation can have. A reputation loss is hardly ever regained. And who we are and what we stand for must mean something internationally, but it must also mean something among each other, such that we can make judgments about each other that are reasonably safe as to how we are likely to behave and treat one another. So my friends, with those few words, I'd like to hand back over to the organizers and spend the rest of the evening listening to you. And I've brought, when you see me writing, it's because I'll be making notes from here. We're in the process of our estimates now, and believe you me, I listen a lot more than you think in terms of how to position and where to position what we have to do in this nation. But let us understand that this is just our turn to carry the baton in this leg of the relay. But if we are going to be serious about repositioning this nation, the first thing is to accept that it is a relay race. And there are those who went before that have brought us safe thus far, and there are those among you here who will come after, who will continue to keep us safe. Thank you, and I look forward to hearing you. But we're going to interact and cooperate with the moderation. So who wants to get the ball rolling?
Well, actually, Prime Minister, we thought that this would be a great opportunity to invite Jason Holder.
Sounds good.
To talk about leadership.
I didn't know you want to do the opening bowling. I thought you were off today. But it seems as though there's no off day for you either. How are you, sir?
I am, relaxed. But it's good to be here. A pleasant good evening to one and all. I'm just coming off a haul in and I expect to open the bowling or batting tonight. But, it's good to be here in St. Lucie. Haven't been here for a little while, and the wind definitely feels a little cooler down here.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. With this conversation, relax yourself. I associate St. Lucie, as I said, with being able to be reflective. And those who have ever heard me speak in St. Lucie know that every speech I've given has been one that's reflective. So let's just talk. There's some people who might be listening to us but don't mind. But as a young Barbadian right now, where do you see the opportunities? Where do you think the country needs to go, given your exposure internationally, given where you have traveled? What are the differences that you see internationally as compared to what you're seeing here? And where do you think we need to bridge the gap to go further?
It's an interesting question, to be fair. I was sat there just thinking as to how this evening will go. I wasn't too sure what to expect. But one of the things that I've been obviously open to is different cultures. I've traveled the world a fair bit. I've seen poverty, and I've seen the riches of riches, to be fair. And look, I think as a country, we just need to obviously develop consensus as to where we want to go. We've definitely got to put our heads together. We got to understand that, there will be hardship, and through hardship, you would definitely reap the rewards if you stick together and have that consensus. I think one of the things for me that I've learned as a leader in cricket, is sometimes you may not have that full consensus or full buy-in from everyone, but it's a matter for you just sit and talk it out with each and every individual until you get that consensus. And until you get that consensus, for me, is the only way you can move forward. It makes no sense you having, 10 players who are buying in and one who's not. That one player who's not buying in, definitely could be detriment towards the squad and towards the results of the common goal that we're looking towards. So I think I could probably relate that to the country as well. We as a people, we just need to buy in to what the leaders are bringing to us. We definitely have to have interaction, as you said. And I think with the interaction, obviously, we can have that common consensus and we could generally move forward as a country.
And what happens if you can't get consensus?
Well,
there's always a Yorker.
I guess that's... I guess that's your Yorker to negotiate.
and it's a real point. I mean, we're having a conversation. Look, I think you're absolutely correct that your first effort is always to bring about consensus. Because if you have consensus on the mission, and then you have consensus on the tactics, the pathway, then you're likely to succeed. But there are some times when you won't have consensus. And do you leave it unaddressed, or do you make the decision and move forward?
Yeah, I guess in tough times you have to make tough calls.
And that's the point.
Yeah, we've got to make tough calls, but as a part of the group, I for one may not always buy into what's being preached, but for me it's about the team's effort. It's not about me personally, it's about what's best for the team. Yeah. And if you've got individuals on a team or a squad who understand that, we need to be pushing as one in one direction, then sometimes you may not definitely have agreement from everyone, but because of the common goal, you just get along with it because of the goals that you're looking to achieve. So I think for us as leaders, we just need to know the individuals that we're working with, and find ways to bring the message across. Sometimes you've got to be a little firm with people. Sometimes you've got to massage egos. It's just about understanding different dynamics that you have within your field. And I guess I'm trying to relate everything to cricket. So for me, just trying to just trying to understand my players, my teammates, and knowing how to get the best out of them. Again, every day you may not feel the same way and feel up to the task, but you've got to put on our face. You've got to be strong enough mentally and physically to go out in the park and achieve. There've been many a times that I've woken up very stiff and sore, not feeling 100%. But I understand the bigger picture. There are people who are paying to come and see us. It's something that we're doing for people who love and adore cricket, and for me that's my motivation as well. So you've got to suck it up. You've got to sometimes take painkillers to ease the pain. Get out on the park and make sure you're doing a job, for your people.
I think Peter Phillips is smiling because he's heard this a couple of times from me. But if I had to ask you, if you wanted to wish one thing for young Barbadians, for us to be able to do for or provide for, what would it be in order to be able to allow the average young Barbadian to lift a game in whatever discipline?
It's funny you ask the question because prior to my tour of India, I went back to the St. Michael's School, and I just tried to interact a little bit with the kids there. But one of the messages that I put forward to them was communication. I just think is at a time in our upbringing where we get so consumed by television, obviously video games, cell phones, but you obviously miss that interaction sometimes with older people. I always tend to hang around a lot of older people because I feel as though they've always got stories to tell. And I like to sit down and listen to old people chat because you can learn so much from them. I'm kind of old school in terms of the cricketing fraternity, where I would stay back in the dressing room just to socialize online. Whereas nowadays you got players who play the game, and as soon as the game is finished, they hop in the cars, hop whatever transportation they got there with, and they're off back to their houses. So I think communication goes a long way. You've got to be able to articulate your points across. You've got to be able to interact with many different people, especially if you're looking to be diverse in different cultures. It's all about understanding the different dynamics of different cultures. And I think as young people of Barbados, we just need to work on our communication skills. You may have an idea or you may have a different perspective on life, but how do you get that message across? And it's all about you articulating yourself, having that ability to reason and get your point across.
What about the resolution of conflict?
Well, that's an ongoing battle, I believe. Look, we've got to understand that you're not gonna have. Well, everybody's not always going to be in your corner. You're not going to agree with everything that everybody does or everybody says. But for the sake of peace, you just need to understand that sometimes I've got to bite my tongue. Sometimes I've got to accept that this may not be the time and place. I heard you mention time and place, and sometimes, again, relating it back to cricket, sometimes I may have a point to get across a player and critique his game, but it may not be best suited for the team environment. It may be a situation where you pull him one side and have a one-on-one discussion with him, and that's just me understanding the time and place and also understanding the individual. He may take it to heart if I do it in front of everybody else, but if I pull him one side and I say, well, put my hand around his shoulder, or say, well, look, let's go for a drink and let's sit down and chat about, how things went. For me, then the message is definitely taken differently. And I think it's important that younger people, try to put the egos aside, put the emotions aside sometimes, and try to understand the dynamic of the other person and where they're coming from.
Now you see why I'm so proud of this young man. Youngsters who don't get involved in sports, how are we going to work to get more of our young people involved in sports or the arts? I feel that, for example, that most sports teach us how to be a team player. I feel that the arts allows us to be able to empathize and to think about others and how others feel. And the government has set a simple target that by the year 2030, the majority, if not all of our children under the age of 18 should be one, be able to be bilingual so that they speak more than one language, and I don't mean English and Beijing. Two, that they can swim, because you cannot live on an island and not be able to swim, both literally and metaphorically. It is a constraining factor. Third, have been exposed to play in a sporting team. Four, exposed to the arts. And five, be taught about business and taking risk. Because at the end of the day, nobody owes us a living. And we have first and foremost to provide for ourselves, or to be able to provide for ourselves. Having set those 5 goals, I'm asking you, if you were in my position, how would you set about getting a greater percentage of young Barbadians involved in sports and artistic activity?
I think it definitely has to come from the school setting. You know, obviously that's where it starts. From primary school, you just need to have the kids exposed to as many sports as possible. I don't believe in limiting people, so I'm just opening up the resources, you know, maybe get sports that we as Bajans are not accustomed to. You know, for instance, I think rugby is something that's really become a lot more prominent in Barbadian
I
cultures.
must tell you, I was shocked at the amount of young girls at the Frederick Smith School who told me when they're going from the school visits that they're now playing rugby.
Yeah, so again, you just need to open up the opportunities for the young people of Barbados. I've obviously been around the world, as I said before, and the school cultures are a little bit different, where they tend to push the sporting culture from a very, very young age. You know, that infrastructure is obviously there for them. They've obviously got the finances and the resources to develop their younger people a little bit better than we do. But I still think with our limited resources, or our resources, for lack of a better phrase, we can do a lot better. You know, just having those opportunities open for younger people, and not limiting them, you know, giving them enough time to have choice, you know, whatever they want to do. It may be swimming, it may be road tennis, it may be boxing, you know, whatever it may be, you know, just having the resources for them.
Can I put a variant to you? Because you see, when you do it in schools, children are still mixing with children and with adult coaches. But when we start to do it in communities, as I said just now, like BCL, then we're creating a space where people of different generations, different backgrounds, different races, sometimes even different genders, come together to play.
Yeah, exactly. One of the things I've said a lot is to bring first-class cricket back into the communities. And it's funny we're here in St. Lucie because
Don't mind him. He recovered fast.
thanks for reminding me. Here in St. Lucie, I remember as a youngster coming down to North Stars Cricket Ground and watching Barbados play first-class cricket. And I've said to a number of personnel at the West Indies Cricket Board, I think we just need to upskill our community grounds and just upskill most of the facilities there and take the cricket back into the communities, because I feel that's where it brings the people back out to cricket. You know, is a situation where people can just walk down the road to their community ground, come and watch cricket, picnic, you know, and the atmosphere is a lot better. I'd rather play cricket in front of hundreds of people as opposed to playing cricket in front of 10 people. You know, sometimes when we have first-class cricket at Kensington Oval, we're down to numbers, probably about 100 people come to watch cricket. I think if we take the cricket back to the communities, we had lots of good atmospheres at Carlton, Windward Cricket Ground in St. Philip, North Star in St. Lucie. And for me, I prefer that. You know, sometimes the grounds may not be of standard, but I believe we can put some money into the grounds and make sure that they're of standard, so we can get first-class cricket and probably local cricket a little bit more back into the communities.
I want to thank you, Jason. We probably may call you back. I'm not sure who next is up. Yeah, Shanna.
Hi, good night, Jason. So just before you go, a quick question. You are a leader, you travel around the world, and I think that has to be a bit taxing on your mental health. So how do you cope and deal with your mental health and make sure that you're in good frame of mind before you go to play and just in general?
Very good question again. I recently just came back from a holiday, and I guess many of you know that I've taken a break from this current series going on against Ireland. And I just felt it was necessary. I felt mentally exhausted, physically exhausted as well. Last year was pretty hectic in terms of our schedule, and this coming year is probably even more hectic. So, I asked for a break because obviously I was a little jaded, and playing every single format for West Indies is very, very taxing, and not only physically on the body but mentally as well. And for me, the traveling takes a toll on my body as well too. So I needed time to get away from it, and the last 2.5 weeks I've just been completely away from cricket. Haven't really been following it, and then I have a pretty good support system around in terms of my friends and family. So I think that's also very, very important as well too. Having people around you who can always uplift you and give you that confidence and that sanity sometimes where you would definitely need. We're constantly under scrutiny, and we cop a lot of criticism. So having a good support system around you, I think, is very, very ideal.
I could give you the manual on criticism. But you have to just stay the course and stay focused. Ironically, that's the advice that one of the ladies this evening that was present in the home that I went to visit the centenarian, and she said to me, if I can tell you something, don't look left, don't look right. Stay focused. So obviously it has endured and helped others. I want to thank you though for sharing, because I'm also aware that the task of sharing is not an easy one. And I thank you for stepping out and helping us begin the conversations, because just as you felt that you needed to relax and you weren't sure where this is going, the majority of people out there feel the same way. So we're going to get through this, and not just with the people talking on stage, but I want to leave room and time for the audience to be able to talk. Is there anyone who wants to ask Jason any other questions before he leaves? Yes. Well, yes, you do, because they're taping. Yeah, they're recording. Can we just have somebody who carries the mics to people, because that might be quicker if they're or they're not wireless.
Okay, hi Jason.
I get it.
One of the things that I see most, particularly in boys at school, is their fear of failure. They don't want to try because they don't want to fail. So I know it's a big question, but if you could possibly, in your view, 3 things. It could be social interaction, it could be something to do with teaching, it could be an environmental answer. What are 3 things that you think would help, let's say, the average teenage boy in secondary school from 12 to 16 face that fear of failure and overcome it? Because it's going to have to be some kind of support. What would be the 3 big things for you?
Tough question. I think you've got to fail. You've got to take that step to fail first. And I think it's very important you understand what failure feels like. And then on the flip side of that, I think you need to put yourself in the environment where you understand success as well too. And then for me, it's just about striking a balance. All of us are naturally afraid of failure, and it's part of us, as people. So for me, the quicker you accept that, for me, the easier it is to deal with. I myself still struggle to deal with failure, and is an ongoing battle. But for me, I've found different coping mechanisms as to how to put it behind me, how to get past it. And for me, it's just setting a goal or setting a few goals. You obviously have process goals, but just trying to stay on course for it. It may not always happen at the or go into in the time span that you're looking at, but for me, I just try to stay very, very focused on the end result. And for me, once I have that end result in mind, you have your process goals, and just try to stay on that plot. And again, I believe in having a strong support system. I can't do it all alone by myself. You need to have strong people around you who understand you and who understand, when you're down, who understand how you are when you're up. And again, it's just about finding that balance, striking that balance, and finding different coping mechanisms.
I want to add to that, because that's my experience too. failure is something we need to teach people how to navigate. The first time I ran in an election, I lost. Now, I could have followed up and get upset and whatever. The election result came 3 o'clock in the morning. By midday, I was back in the constituency the next day, just preparing to work again. Because as you said, you just have to stay the course and to stay focused. There was a time when I first became a young lawyer that I felt that you had to win every case. And then you begin to realize that that's not what your mission is. Your mission is to be able to represent your client to the best of your ability. And that equally, that an A is not only 100%, an A is 75 or 80% and up. So that people judge you based on your trajectory. Perfection belongs to the divine, Karen Goodrich. And that is part of the problem that we have in raising our children and raising our young people. They cannot manage and negotiate failure. And the disappointment becomes anger in some instances, and the lashing out flows from then. I learned as well, even going back to the same politics, politicians who lost on the first outing know how to lose throughout their career. Those who lose for the first time after 15 or 20 years are devastated and can't find the center again. It's true. It's true. So that when we lost government in 2008, for me it was par for the course. Why? Because I don't feel like eating fish every day. I don't feel like eating chicken every day. I don't feel like eating pork every day. I don't feel like eating steak every day. Now, if I can admit that I have different tastes for different moments, other people can also say that I feel that you're the person for the moment. But 5 years or 10 years from now, they'll say, I feel you, Puffy, are the person for the moment. So that people have the right to make decisions. But we begin to believe that it is always about us rather than understanding the context and the environment within which people are functioning and why failure may occur sometimes. So that one of the things that strikes me is this generation's absolute interest in confronting mental health issues in a way that is positive, and that requires us to understand that because a person may have some mental health challenges does not mean that their life is written off, because there is both medication and counseling that can bring them back to being highly productive citizens. So I thank you for being open as to how you navigate failure, because too many people want perfection without understanding that that's not what life is always about. That we would love it, but sometimes the pursuit of perfection is the obstacle to progress. Anyone else before Jason goes? Jason, they don't want you to leave.
Hi, I would like to ask a question. Jason, what do you think could be done for the youth of St. Lucie?
Done in terms of what? In terms of sport?
In terms of basically uplifting in the whole.
I wouldn't just try to segregate it down to people in St. Lucie, but I think as a people here in Barbados, I just think we just need to understand, again, where we want to go. We need to understand where we want to go and, set the course of action as to how you're going to get there. Again, we get so consumed with results that we lose sight of the actual small things in front of us, and sometimes we just need to narrow in a little bit more in the process and sometimes forget about the end result. But I just believe in having that direction, you need to understand where you want to go and just try to plot that way forward.
One more question. You know where's the community around our star's name?
No, I honestly don't know.
Thanks.
Any more? Yes. These lights are really blinding.
My question is, there are children at my school who want to take part in different sports and activities, and their parents they don't have the money to afford to buy the gear and stuff. But the children, they are afraid to, go out there and participate because they think the other children will tease them and make fun of them because they don't have the gear. What would you say to them?
Again, you got to keep your head down. I remember when I started playing cricket at school, for instance, there were a number of schools who couldn't afford gear. A number of players who didn't have that equipment. But we would obviously lend gear when we see fit. I saw many times where guys played cricket with one pad. And it was also a lesson learned because you didn't want to get hit on the foot that didn't have the pad on. So for me, it's a blessing and a curse. I just think that we need to use the resources that we have. We're not blessed sometimes to have every single resource available to us, but I think we've got enough that we can make do. And I just think in time as we grow as a country, and the schools, for instance, can get that financing to help uplift sport and buy the equipment, then we can obviously be heading in that direction. But I think until now, we go back to sharing a little bit more. It gets you to understand individuals a little bit better as well too, because I guess pride comes in the way you going to someone and asking them to use their equipment. So again, that's a way to communicate with a peer, and you just build our relationship with them. You have an understanding. Well, look, today is Tuesday. We have practice on Tuesday. I may not have my bat today. I couldn't travel with it on the bus, for instance. That was a challenge for us, getting on the bus with cricket gear. So I'm going to leave my gear home, and my partner may be coming down, and he may be getting a lift down with his parents. So I'll just use your gear today, and vice versa. So I just think we just need to find ways to make do with what we have. And again, once you have your head down as to where you want to go, then I don't think the distraction should come in the way of you feeling uncomfortable not having the equipment there. But I think you just need to put your head down, focus a little bit more on what you want to achieve, and forget some of the noise and the peripherals.
Well said. Okay. Jason, thank you very much. And
Thank you.
and I'm going to continue to ask you to be engaged in case we need you throughout. But I'd like to invite Puffy, Andre.
Before Andre comes to the stage, we have a question from social media. And the question is for the PM: how do you achieve work-life balance as a world leader?
I can't even tell you that I'm achieving balance now. But I try. When Puffy comes on stage, he will tell you, what I would like to do more than anything else between now and August? Guess. I'd like to learn to DJ. Anybody who knows me knows my absolute love for music. So that my work-life balance comes by being able to spend time either listening to music and very occasionally if I can get to swim. Because when you're in the ocean, you really don't have no phone or anybody coming at you. And I find that your blood pressure just comes right down. Your whole mental state is different. So that, quite frankly, being able to do that a few times a month and being able to listen to music at least twice a week is sufficient for me to be able to feel refreshed to meet the next day. But with those words, the master of DJing, are you going to help teach me how to DJ?
One quick thing before we get right into the conversation. MX169, your car light is on.
I thought that would have been my job. And that's normally me. But Prime Minister, I will give you some good news and say, last year was definitely the year of milestones, and I reached a milestone last year, which I actually found myself feeling very fulfilled afterward, and I will be a little more vulnerable than usual because speaking on mental health, I actually went to my first counseling session today, so that was a big milestone for me. You know what I mean? Yeah, but to give you some good news, I actually completed or gave my first workshop when it came to DJing, partnering with Red Bull 3 Style and an academy in Singapore called Ace Academy. And it went pretty well. So I guess you would be our
Congratulations.
featured guest at the workshop here in Barbados.
I look forward to that.
Yes.
I want to start off by saluting your courage. You know, a lot of my candidates, when I first started meeting with them, I would tell them that in this game of public life, if you want to be sincere, you have to risk yourself. Because if you're not risking yourself, people will get on that you're really not being sincere or truthful in what you're saying. And with your sharing about the counseling session just now is a tremendous statement of vulnerability on your part, but also it gives confidence to others who may be thinking, how do I talk? How do I share? How do I ask for help?
100%.
And I'd like you to speak a little more about that for me, please.
I feel like the general mindset or picture that people have when it comes to going to a therapist or going to a counselor is that, something major has to be wrong. And that's not always the case. I found today, and I mean, this is coming from a really organic place, after I basically told the doctor what was going on and how I was feeling in my life. Obviously, I'm stressed as a result of work. My personal life does have its battles that I fight. But after that, before even being provided with a solution, just being able to talk it out to somebody who doesn't have a bias or doesn't have a premeditated or perception or understanding of myself, that was an amazing feeling.
Liberating.
It literally felt as though somebody lifted the weight of the world off of my shoulder,
Yes.
and that was before even being provided with a solution, or things or steps that might help me toward overcoming my little hurdles that I might be dealing with, So I think we just need to eradicate that taboo that something has to be seriously wrong or you have to be feeling or going through something serious, in order to go see somebody or in order to go have a conversation about yourself,
And that's why just now I was saying to Jason, the opportunities for intergenerational interaction
100%.
are so important because not everybody may have the luxury of being able to go to a counselor.
Yeah.
But there may be somebody in the community that they can speak with that can begin to help them. And as you said, even just the task of speaking
Yeah.
is a liberating factor for most people. I have a funny way of putting it. I tell people I don't leave certain space in my head. And I say so because you determine what you concentrate on in here.
100%.
And this is part and parcel of what we have to do. Now, you've been able to travel the world. What difference has it made to you being able to be given that opportunity as opposed to if you were in Barbados and not being able to see other places or go other places or meet other people?
I feel like that exposure gives you a priceless level of or a priceless development of open-mindedness. You know what I mean? And I feel like in our societies that is lacking a bit because we tend to think that, this 166 square miles that we live on is the end all and be all. But really and truly it is not. Being exposed to so many different cultures, different people doing different things, tackling tasks and exposing and expressing themselves in different ways, that is something that you cannot pay money for. You know what I mean? A price cannot be put on that. And that level of open-mindedness that has provided for me is something that I use each and every day, and it helps me to not only deal with people, but in my profession and how I DJ and how I present music and how I read crowds and audiences, because that is
Critical.
that is critical in my career, especially.
And even down to what food you eat.
100%.
Because I think that one of the things that struck me was talking to he isn't so young, a middle-aged man the other day who said to me, I said, you want a goat roti? He said, I don't eat goat. I said, why? He said, don't, I never had it before and I ain't trying it. So that sense of openness is something, do you value it now?
100%, I do.
And do you believe that the society that we live in can be made stronger by making people more open and more willing to try different things, from different foods to being able to speak and relate to different people,
Surely.
to people from different religions talking to each other? I want to hear you on those things.
Yeah, I mean, if it's one thing that I really do love is that in itself. You know what I mean? Sometimes, and I could touch on some of the things that you touched on just now. I have a habit of whenever I go to a country or I'm exposed to a new culture, I ask them, yo, so what's the local food? What do you guys eat here? Sometimes it's amazing. Sometimes I pay the price.
Well, they say nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Yeah, well, but that in itself is something great because that one experience can lead to something as interesting as a conversation starter. You know what I mean? You might be somewhere and you're talking to somebody from a different culture, but you have that one thing in common where it was this particular food that you tried, and you all share the experience, and that conversation turns into a relationship or a business relationship that you all might, learn to cultivate. So I definitely get my hands wet in many, many areas. Food is one of them. Activities is another. Touring with Red Bull, you cannot go to somebody's country and not do a local activity or not be exposed to their local music and a sport or something that they might, hold valuable. So that's definitely something that I do all the time, and it's definitely molded me into the person that I am today.
What do you think we need to do to be able to cause more of our young people to appreciate that there is a virtue in being open to other people and other cultures?
What do I think I need to do?
What do we need to do to make them more open, to foster that openness?
I feel like there's so many tools that they already use. As you said earlier, you can seek what you want to seek and find what you want to find. YouTube is something that I use every single day. And furthermore, I don't even watch TV. I don't even have cable. I watch YouTube and I find what I want to find and I search for what I want to search for. But I do have a period in time where I just dive into the unknown. And I feel like we could utilize things like YouTube and just be like, yo, have community sessions where, we decide, we pick a topic and we start to watch videos on it and have a conversation when it comes to that. Jason did say something about the community center. I feel like, and I was talking to Matthew about it, this was an idea of mine and I wanted to talk to you and Jonathan about it before, but our schedules just never matched. I feel like something that will help our society and our not only just the people in our society, but our entrepreneurs as well, is to have co-op spaces, looking at people like, for instance, my photographer, he might not be completely comfortable with doing work at home, but if we have a space where these people could come and sit down and have somewhere comfortable to work, AC, internet, a printer, little things to nibble on, you know what I mean? These spaces could start conversations among people who might never even have met up if they stuck in their little corner, you know what I mean? So community centers or co-op spaces, I think that would be something that would be interested to implement going on to the future. You know what I mean?
Good news now or later? One of the things that had me consumed this afternoon was in the middle of doing estimates with different ministries, and met with the Ministry of Industry and International Business this afternoon. And what we're trying to do is separate from the community development centers to create some spaces that we put in a green screen in one or two, we put in some computers, we put in some labs, basically innovation spaces.
Correct.
And the first one will be in the harbor because it's in town and central for people to go there. But ultimately, we want to be able to have locations across the island that are doing the same thing. So something may be in Speightstown, something may be in Belle Plaine, something may be in Six Roads, in the Glebe, and as close as Speightstown may be to here. I'm sure Peter's going to tell me that he wants to do something in St. Lucie, but it needs to be a public-private effort.
Right.
And I get it, because in some instances, for whatever reason, the home may not be ideal for a particular person to operate.
Correct.
And then they may want the synergy or the space where they can bounce ideas off
Right.
of other people. So I thank you for raising it, and certainly will follow through on it.
Yeah. My 3 words to say to you upon hearing that is count me in. And anytime you need me, just holler, because I would love to be.
I can holler.
You know, I would love to be associated with that. You know what I mean? Anytime.
Yeah, and I think giving people access to a green screen gives them so many different other opportunities, because as I keep saying, I don't know where the next Puffy coming from, the next Jason Holder, the next Cigarfield Sobers, the next Rihanna, the next Aquila. I don't know where they're coming from. So we have to be able to foster the environment to allow them to blossom and to be able to come up to the top. Yeah? Apart from that, though, how difficult is it for you to be on the road all the time?
Well, I mean, I am.
You know, Buju has a song. If you were in front of the thing now, I would tell you, bring it up. But it's not an easy road.
It is not
Them
an
who
easy
see
road.
the glamour and the glitter think a better rose.
Correct.
Who feels it knows.
Pip, 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 pip. Yes. I am actually mid-vacation, mid-break. Matthew actually begged me to come out and come off and plug out, you know. So
Thank you.
This is the first time that I'm actually doing it. I'm a couple days in, and I'm liking it more than I should. I've been playing PlayStation every day. But yeah, it's not an easy road, you know. Something that I was actually having a conversation about with a good friend of mine is social media is like the Matrix, you know, and we tend to only share our wins on socials, you know, and people are programmed by that, and they think that the lives that we live is only glitz and glamour and hype and enjoyment, but really and truly it is definitely difficult. They don't see the countless hours of jet lag that myself and Jason would be dealing with. They don't see the fact that no matter what you're going through or no matter how tired you are, you still have to put on that face and put on those pads, or, you know, put your mind in a gear.
Or I share one with you. I left here Friday night, traveled 23 hours, was in a place for 44 hours, and then traveled another 23 hours last night to
Correct.
get back here.
And the toll
and
that
then
that
went
takes.
straight into a meeting, and then straight to give a speech, and then another meeting after that, then to prepare for estimates for today.
The toll that takes mentally. Yeah. You got to put on that face. And sometimes it is harder than other times.
But you suck it in.
Correct.
Suck it up.
You got to
and
do what you got to
continue.
do. Yeah.
And that is the message. You see, social media has its benefits, but it has its disadvantages.
Indeed.
And how are you, therefore, having said that it has shown too much only of the positive, what do you believe that we need to start doing in Barbados to start to allow those who watch us on social media to have a more realistic understanding of what life really is?
I think that, first of all, what helped me particularly was to seek knowledge and to raise my level of self-awareness. You know, as I became more self-aware, I'm more aware of how I was feeling, how present I am in the now, stuff like that. That allowed me to kind of understand what was happening and really show people, okay, cool, well, this is where I need to go and this is where we need to be. What should we do to help folks to get out there? I feel like communication is a big deal. Start those conversations. We definitely we come from a place where speaking out on certain things is, kind of taboo as well. A lot of people don't know how to swallow their pride. But failing forward is something that we need to learn to do. I take pride in failing forward, and I might not share my failures all the time, but I definitely do it,
I thank you for that courage. There's some youngsters, I think, here who want to ask some questions. Where are they?
Yeah, good night.
Good night.
Good night, Star.
Take a deep breath and try to choose my words correctly.
No problem. You-
Just shoot any way you want to put it, bro.
Right. The regathering thing that going on, I like it. And we had a little tournament the other day in Czech Hall, football. Most of St. Lucie is football. Earlier, Holder was talking about the cricket, and I remember going to school. We attend a first class game in Crab Hill. That was good. So I was saying earlier, in terms of fixing the fields, we just gotta go all the way AstroTurf to play football. UWI wants to play UE. And we would like a field somewhere in the north rather than we going to the south tongue, whatever you want to call it, to play football.
I hear you. I thank you for raising it. I hear you. I'm actually talking, in fairness, to the Brewster's Trust about working with government to see how we can upgrade a number of fields across the island. So I know it's a real problem and we're going to deal with it. So it's just a question of which ones we choose to deal with first in St. Lucie. But ultimately, our goal really must be, one, to upgrade. But I want you to do a little partnership with me now too. Because once we do the heavy lifting and the heavy upgrading, in some instances, communities may need to help us take care of it too. Are y'all up for that?
Yeah, I just do coaching in right there in Czech Hall, and it's be very difficult as the little the girl come early and she said in terms of equipment and stuff, it's be very difficult because parents don't have in order to send their children, and then some children being that they don't want to go there and showcase their skill, but they be talented. So in terms of raising funds and finding the money, or if the government, because like the little programs done got right now, and then got the young coaches going out there and doing the little coaching, if we could get more of that going on, not
You
just
like
now,
that program?
I love it.
Okay. No
And I know
problem.
other
Continue.
people here love it because then they got them things going, needing things in St. Lucie. When I come here tonight, I was expecting more St. Lucie, being real. I, like Puffy, went on YouTube, see the work he could do. Jason Holder, love him, cricket coach. I was not saying Puffy shouldn't be there, Sir Frat. That's me, being real.
Good point.
Kimar Roach.
Good point.
Kimar Roach, right there from Lowland, St. Lucie. West Indies cricketer, same way. So not that they don't like Puffy, not that they don't like Jason Holder, St. Lucie, we gathering what I expected.
100%.
But I think you're doing a wonderful job.
Yeah, because I just come and I being real, I being honest. I was at work, I went with my girlfriend to get some lunch. I said, well, they got the regathering thing. I could come down here, I could get belly full. I went right there. Tell myself there's some rotis cross there. Going across there something I can't remember chicken, something that I don't even like. Appreciate it. Something was given. Somebody in St. Lucie could prepare that. We would feel a lot better. People here, and I know like we gather in St. Lucie, give me more St. Lucie. They got a lot of things that we want, we need, and know that I saying, and again, a lot of claps and I think that people know will come and actually say what they want to say.
I hope so too.
I think we just found the mayor of St. Lucie.
Thank you, my star. You didn't give me a name though. Huh? We love you.
Right, my name is Kimar Goddard.
Kimar Goddard.
Everybody know me as Crab.
Crab.
Yes, please.
All right, my brother. Thank you very much. Who's next? Over here?
Yes, good night. Now, I could attest to what Kimar is saying because I'm a painter by trade. And after I found and researched a lot of information regarding to the culinary arts, and being that Barbados is supposed to be the capital of the culinary arts, I set out on a journey about 3 years ago, documenting the various places around Barbados where people can go and get something to eat. So that visual catalog, I have that on YouTube. It's called Lunch Lime. And my objective was to go majority, if all of the places, to give people a first-person view of what they can expect from countries far and wide when they get here, and they will see for themselves what the experience is through the eyes of two Barbadians. This is myself and my co-host.
What's your name?
My name is Dexter Johnson.
Thank you, Dexter.
Right.
Thank you for doing that kind of program that others can find. It says Lunch Lime?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Lime or line?
Lime, L-I-M-E.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. All right? Because, I mean, personally, if we do brag about Barbados being the culinary capital, and I'm a painter by trade, I paint houses, I pressure wash. And if I can do that, if I can set out to create that goal, that vision that I had to, give people that idea that we can step out from what we normally do and embark on other ideas that we have, that we dreamed on, and we could come together with a great team, myself and my team, to make that happen. I think that's something that other youngsters on the island that do have those dreams could embark on. I mean, it's been a struggle, like what Puffy said. It's been a struggle. I've been turned down many times. I've been turned down from sponsorship, the whole full works. But I've never stopped because I believe that ultimately my aim is to make that information that I put out in-flight information, that when people come to the island and they're seeing this information on the plane coming here, they could see, well, this is what is going on from the eyes of a Bajan, not a polished show, not a scripted show, just two people sitting down, enjoying food, taking snapshots of food, telling people what the food is about before they get here. And that is my goal.
Well, and the truth is that more and more tourists are interested in the experiences that are unvarnished. So I salute you and want to encourage you to continue doing it. More importantly, I am impressed by the fact that you're doing this as a hobby and that your first job is really the painting and the power washing. So I can say to you that prepare for some work. I think you're going to see a construction boom in Barbados soon.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes?
Hi, good night. Puffy, a question. What do you think can be done to help young DJs who have an interest in getting on the world stage like you are right now? What do you think can be done to help them uplift themselves or do their craft better?
I think a lot can be done. And as I announced at the beginning of our little talk, I will be working closely with some friends of mine on starting or implementing workshops, DJ workshops here in Barbados. We have to teach the Prime Minister how to DJ. So that is something that we're definitely going to be putting our foot toward this year. So that is it. We're going to be doing the workshops, and hopefully we can expose young DJs, or not only young DJs, but people who want to get into the craft. Myself, Just Jay, we could all ask Surf Rat for a helping hand to step in and get everybody involved and uplift and really develop our industry. Because I will say this, if you could DJ in Barbados, you could DJ anywhere in the world. We are some of the most difficult people to please. And
It's a fact.
here is...
You ever see Bajans at a concert?
Let me tell you.
They stand up and watch.
So all I will ask you to do is just keep your ears to the ground. What you can do right now is, if you have a question, reach out to one of us. Did you try? Are you a DJ yourself? No? Do you have any friends who are DJs?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did any of them try to reach out to me or send me a message on Instagram or anything?
I guess so.
Pardon?
I don't know for sure, but I guess they tried to contact me
Well, I mean, sometimes, we just need to build the courage to reach out, you know what I mean? We are as it is as easy as sending a direct message sometimes, you know what I mean?
But what if they're not in your circle or any of your peer circle?
You have Instagram, you have Twitter, and I use those a lot.
I asked that because you said you were starting a workshop.
Yes.
So I was wondering how someone as not connected to you or your peers could get involved in that workshop. Being someone from the north where, let me say, transportation is an issue or other things are issues, how can they get involved in that workshop?
Just off the top of my head, I feel a solution to that would just be, as I said, reach out to the local people in the community. So, for instance, you guys, St. Lucie, you have making the same mistake that Jason made. The breeze definitely feels like Lucia. But yeah, sorry, St. Lucie, you all have people that you are directly connected to. Surf Rat, Sheldon Pop, Level Vibes. They're also from here. So we would definitely be asking their assistance and reaching out to people that they may know or just spreading the word and working, you could bum a lift with one of them. I don't mind putting a couple people in my car and driving them down the road, you know what I mean? So I am perfectly fine with that. So we'll definitely be, our ears and our hands will be down on the ground and we'll be working with the people who are directly connected to you guys as well in getting everybody involved.
Okay, thanks.
Is that cool?
Thanks.
It's okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, good night, everyone. I'm Dr. Nume. Puffy, thanks for sharing about the counseling, your vulnerability, because that is an act of courage, and it also gives other people permission to, seek that kind of assistance without feeling judged. So thank you for sharing that. That was a highlight for me.
Thanks.
With regards to the gentleman that talked about highlighting food in Barbados, that's a topic that's very dear to my heart. We do have some incredible food in Barbados, and as we all know, we are in a very dire state with the state of the health of the nation. And my concern is the school meals that are currently being prepared for the children. And it's one thing as a physician or just as someone who's very passionate about food and nutrition to educate people about nutrition and how to cook and how to do all of the things. But then there's also the challenges of accessibility. So yes, knowledge is one thing, but there's accessibility. So how can we make
Affordability.
yes, and affordability as well. And when I try to discuss with my patients about maybe choosing healthier options, the affordability always comes up. And I try to remind people that I find that affordability is a challenge when you're actually trying to purchase healthy food that's already prepared. So say, for example, you want to buy a salad from somewhere, it's usually more expensive than if you go to a fast food place. But the other alternative actually is to, you have to have more effort, put in more effort and go to places like the markets and support the small farmers where you can buy local ground provisions and the food that is grown and produced here in Barbados and put the effort to create those meals at home and it would be cheaper, right? So, but as I said, my concern mainly right now is the school meals for children and what is being given to them. So how can we provide healthier meals for the children so that accessibility wouldn't be a problem. And also in that way, if we can provide healthier meals because the things that people think are unhealthy are things, the things that people deem to be not delicious are actually healthy, right? So healthy meals are delicious. So if we go and we get our sweet potatoes and cassavas and eddos and cook those things and provide them at school, the children will enjoy them. We just have to educate them about it and prime their taste buds to it. And in that way, providing those foods for the children is also supporting our local farmers and our local economy.
I think you must have heard me this morning in estimates. I met with the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, and one of the things we made clear, in fact, they're coming back Saturday with new production targets for both ground provisions and vegetables, because I am adamant that we need to reduce the import bill on a lot of the things that we are importing that we can produce locally.
Yes.
So that in almost every instance, our production in food crops, in ground provisions, is lower than it was in 2005, lower than it was in 2003, lower than it was in 2001, whether it's cassava or yams or okras or string beans. I can go down the line. And I've said to them to come back to me, because we need now, I am going to support things where I see a settled plan for production. So that, tell me, what are the targets? How are we going to get there? Who are the farmers that are going to help us get there? What are 6-week crops? What are 12-week crops? What are 6-month crops? And let us work it systematically down the line in order to make the difference. Equally, we then raised with the Ministry of Industry this afternoon the fact that some people, for example, and I laughed and joked, those of you who may leave here late tonight and want to stop at the supermarket may not want to pick up a sweet potato that you gotta go and peel. But if you get some prepared sliced sweet potato in the supermarket, as you do with other vegetables or whatever now, that there has to be some level of value added or agro-processing that will allow us to be able to cater to all needs in the society. Now, thirdly, and I'll say it to you this way. As Minister of Education, when I tried to change the school meals menu, the children just would not eat it in town. In the country, no, I ain't joking. In the country, we got through with it. So we introduced a lot more ground provisions. In town, they just didn't eat it. Perhaps I have a different perspective now, because with older age, I will say to the others, you've got to stay the course with it, and eventually they will eat it. Because the truth is that if I could ban macaroni pie from being eaten every day, I would do it. Because really and truly, people should eat macaroni pie once or twice a month, if so much. Because it is a walk-in heart attack. And it bothers me, Jason, when I see sportsmen telling me, when I ask them what you want to eat, they say pie. And I'm saying to myself, where are you going to get the stamina from if you eating pie? Okay? So it is a public education process, but I also believe, Puffy, people like you, what vegetables you like?
I eat a lot of carrots. I love carrots. Broccoli is another thing that I like a lot.
What about squash?
Squash is decent.
Exactly.
Squash is decent still.
But you know why I ask these questions? Because even today with
like
the Ministry of
okras.
Agriculture, I learned to love okras only in the last year.
No, I love
confess.
okras. I love okras.
But only today, I asked the Ministry of Agriculture, we are importing $5-6 million a year in broccoli. Are you going to grow it? Or are you going to get people to start eating something? Because when I was a child, we used to eat a lot more string beans. We used to eat a lot more. I don't know, last time I see string beans about the place. Huh? You understand? So that, how do we get eating habits across the board back to match local agricultural production? And at the end of the day, I think that people like yourself and Jason and others have the ability to influence youngsters too. The last point I want to make on this is this. Whenever I go into a community and I meet a young teenager who has promise, cricket, football, athletics, whatever it is, I immediately call the people around him and say, you know, you're dealing with precious commodity. And it is up to you to make sure that this young boy or this young lady stays the course and eats properly, no big set of drinking or no smoking or nothing so. And study yourself. You think if people didn't take care of Usain Bolt and make sure that he was on the straight and narrow in terms of how he ate and not drinking and not smoking, do you think he would have achieved what he did? Obadele, you're here, same thing, and you'll get your chance to speak soon. But those things, okay? And I find that in communities, we need to take the talent and the youngsters among us and nurture them, because sometimes they feel left out. Oh, other people drinking, or other people getting to do this, or other people getting to do that, and I can't get to do it. And at the end of the day, you're dealing with young people who are still trying to fight the tests of maturity, who are still trying to grow, and whose brain is still thinking and manipulating all these things. But I do feel that there's a role for people like yourselves, because we have a crisis, and it's called chronic NCDs. Years ago, it was HIV and AIDS that was the sole focus. The truth is, when we look at the incidence of diabetes, when we look at the incidence of hypertension, when we look at the incidence of stroke, when we look even at the people who are now presenting with kidney disease, and we may have to have the conversation, as we started to up to yesterday, about transplants, because just to do dialysis is 3 times as expensive as a transplant. But transplant can't only be about living donors. We're going to have to look at people also. And I say it publicly now, if something happens to me, I want all of my organs to be given to whoever needs them to live a better life. Because at the end of the day, if we can help others live stronger and better lives, why not do it? So these are some of the conversations that as a nation, not as a government, government's role is different, but as a nation, these are some of the conversations we need to be having in terms of changing how we eat, changing how we do certain things. The government is prepared to we're going to put, I think, a minimum of 30, it might be 40, I can't remember now, community nursing aides across the country dealing with those patients who have become the most chronic ones that the hospital is already dealing with. This has nothing to do with the primary healthcare system. And we're going to put those 30 nurses or so dealing hopefully with about 50, 60 patients each over a 2-week period. We're going to have 3 doctors working above them. And then we want to start also some community exercise programs so that in St. Lucie, in St. Peter, in St. Joseph, people don't necessarily have to come to town or go to a gym in some instances, but it's being done to just get older people moving and to keep them moving, or even people who are not working but don't have the money to be able to pay to go to a gym. Okay?
I honor your efforts.
The school meals will keep going a second time again.
Yes, and I honor your efforts to provide that for the community. I just have another concern is that, like we said, accessibility. When everyone leaves here, they don't want to go to Massey or to the supermarket and, go home and cook. So a main problem is accessibility. And a huge concern of mine is now the development of these large American franchises that are being introduced into the country and making very low quality food easily accessible to the average working class. And we see the locals now reaching out for that food on a daily basis. And the fact of the matter is that accessibility to these types of foods will result in more NCDs, and it is affecting their productivity.
That's why I'm saying that we have to be able to boost production, but at the same time increase public education by people who are influencers, being able to explain to people, look, boy, left out that piece of macaroni pie, leave out that piece of that roti there, eat this instead. But if it is available because people are planting more in communities and parishes, the sweet potatoes, the edders, the breadfruit, all of those things then are there for people to access and to be able to afford. But when I asked him, you talk about broccoli. Broccoli is always going to be more expensive than string beans grown locally. Not true?
Yes, and Burger King is very cheap.
That is
So
true, but
this is-
whether,
so this
whether
is my-
them
this
or
is-
any other fast food, the reality is you can't ban them, but you have to be able to sensitize people that everything with moderation, so that you can't be eating fast food every day, and that you need to be able to balance it. And how many people talk to people about what their plate should look like and what nutrients they should get? How many people talk to people about why there needs to be balance? And those are the
Well,
things.
I do.
No, I don't mean you
But
personally, because
I
I think
understand.
clearly you do.
I understand.
But I'm saying that those are some of the conversations that I'm having both within the ministries and within civil society, because unless we raise a people, we cannot build a nation. And we take a lot for granted that people know what is good for them and what is not. And when you start to talk with people, you realize that people genuinely don't know. So that a man will tell you, boy, I ain't eating no more meat, without realizing that they need to substitute and put some other kind of thing in there to be able to build the proteins, and that proteins are necessary. So I just think that these conversations don't only have to happen at my level, but I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to have people recognize that community by community by community, we can start the conversations, we can start the mentorship. These 650 families that I want us to hold their hands, part and parcel of the process is not only about that, but it's just about getting them to understand you can't cook macaroni every day. If you cook macaroni or pasta every day and you're not eating the kind of vegetables at all, you're going to end up with problems. And that's why more and more young people are presenting with type 2 diabetes, not true?
Yeah, of course.
So we have a national crisis. But I thank you for raising it. Puffy, I don't know if you want to add your 2 cents worth to it, please.
Well, I would definitely help in raising the awareness when it comes to eating healthy. I do try to eat as healthy as possible. Sometimes coming home at the wee hours in the morning, there's not always great options, I will admit that. But if I can hold out until the morning, I will definitely try to do so. And sometimes it's not even necessary to eat that late, you know, it just falls into habit or some beliefs that we might have. So, you know, sometimes you just need to stick it out. Sometimes something as simple as a glass of water could be that substitute for that late night craving for me, you know. So that's just my personal experience. If that could help somebody watching this later on.
Yeah, I think we just need to share more and more.
Absolutely.
Roshana?
So, Prime Minister, at this moment, I just want to invite Mr. John Jones. He's done very well in agricultural field, and I think that at this point in time, he can provide a very, very good insight as it relates to NCDs and eating healthier for Barbadians.
Thank you.
Hey, good night, everyone. Just to touch on what the nurse said, sorry. Healthy food is actually accessible in Barbados. We as a people are just kind of lazy. I would say that, yeah. Today alone, at our farm, we harvested over 10,000 pounds of sweet potato. I mean, it's available. It's there. I'm assistant manager at Redland Farms in St. George. You probably see our lettuce brand in the supermarket. I am also in charge of helping help boost sales at the farm. I studied at Illinois State University in the States. And I played professional basketball for 5 years and traveled all around the world. And during my time playing basketball, I actually took advantage of every single agricultural opportunity in each country that I lived. Australia was the last, where I helped on a 25-acre farm that probably produced enough food to feed everybody in Barbados. I think, Prime Minister, we actually need to focus on 5 to 10 years from now, how can we feed everybody? How can we modernize agriculture? Because agriculture is seen as an old-time thing, and it's not seen as something that you can actually become wealthy from. You need to approach the farmers themselves. They need to be educated about how to grow stuff, how to go through the fertilizer process, how to actually plant, how to understand the science behind all of this stuff. You probably heard this from the Minister of
No,
Agriculture.
I'm only laughing because I didn't hear it from him. I told him that today. Where's Mr. Roy Morris? Because one of the things that we've indicated is that within the next month, the Ministry of Agriculture has a certain number of extension officers, but those extension officers can multiply their benefit if they start to put in the how to program that I talked about at the beginning, how to grow X, how to grow Y, how to grow sweet potato, how to grow, where
Yes,
to
indeed.
put it. And it's that kind of information that needs to be publicly available so that more people in the communities, we were dealing with the issue of accessibility just now of vegetables and fruit, so that more people can be engaged in growing their own. And
Yes.
one of the things, yes, we've set out to plant trees this year, but some of the trees that we plant must be food-bearing trees, fruit-bearing trees as well.
Yes, I can actually help you with your broccoli to lower the import bill. Foursquare Farms just started a small operation in growing broccoli. You could probably help investing in them maybe, and they could help you in turn mass produce broccoli to lower our import bill on that.
We'd love that.
Yes.
I would have loved that as well.
Yeah, and there,
He's not like George Bush.
yeah, modernizing is also a main focus that you could focus on because as we upskill in our society, we also need to produce more food faster and produce more food more efficiently. There are greenhouse farms that I've toured that fully automated. You don't have to have anyone working there.
And the containers too.
Yeah, containers will work, but I'm a little biased against them. And they don't produce that much food. They produce quality, but not quantity. Yeah. So I think we could have a conversation. I would actually love to be there when you're speaking to the Ministry of Agriculture.
Come with me on Saturday at 10 o'clock.
No problem. I'll be there early.
Meeting with them good. Again, I want to also make the point that if we're going to do this, and look, I've chosen agriculture and health because I believe that they have been the outside children of the government of Barbados for the last 50 years. And I mean that not in a disparaging way, but I believe that we need to be able to get on top of both of them if we're going to see a platform laid to be able to stop the undermining of our society by literally undermining the ability of people to work and to live longer. But I also want us to be conscious that we have something called the CARICOM single market and single economy. And therefore, we're not only limited by what lands are available in Barbados, but Suriname, Senator Wiggins is here and she is my special envoy to Suriname. And she can tell you that, for example, we're now in the process of about to, I think Opportunity Knocks or Calls was GIS program has run it, but we need some additional ads because we need to find 25 or 30 people who are interested in going to Suriname to engage in farming as a pilot project. And if this works, then the sky is the limit. Because the truth is that Suriname has a need for people. It is the size of the Netherlands, but it only has a population of 600,000 roughly when the Netherlands has 17 million people. Suriname has one of the largest sources of fresh water. It has the Brokopondo Lake that is almost 4 times the size of Barbados at about 600 square miles. Now, they are more than prepared to work with Barbadians to develop greater opportunity in agriculture and in food farming and in fishing. And I am interested in finding out who are the people in Barbados that really have a passion for agriculture. And I've said to the Ministry of Agriculture, look, we have some funds that we can make available to be able to really help those farmers who are serious about expanding production. Let us work with them. Similarly, those who want to be able to expand their horizons, because a country like Suriname will ultimately offer them opportunities that we can never offer because we just don't have the land space. And who are those people that are prepared to take on those new frontiers, particularly younger people? And let us work with you because it is our job to be able to help position you in those places to create the opportunities.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
One more question. I know it's been discussed over the last couple months or a year, but the marijuana, medical marijuana, where are we with that, and what's the future? What does the future hold? I guess for young, ambitious farmers like myself that would love to do it legally.
Well, I want to say that you can only do it legally.
Yes, that's the only way I will get involved.
I think the Minister of Agriculture has announced that the process of licensing will start very shortly. And obviously, in order to do it legally, you need to be licensed. And we are going to be working with the farmers to see how best, because at the end of the day, we don't want similarly to make the same mistake that was made with sugar or that was made with many other primary commodities across the developing world, where we only produce the primary commodity. We need to look at the manufacturing process, we need to look at the tourism value added, and we need to be able to extract as much value as we can for the Barbadian population,
Yes.
working either together or working with other investors from outside.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, scientific research is critical. Barbados led the world in the 19th century in scientific research on cane. We led the world. How many people in here know where grapefruit came from? Barbados. And in the 19th century, grapefruit was, Puffy looking at me like I was like saying something strange. Grapefruit was the product of sweet orange and shallot. How many of you have seen, when last you see Bajan cherries?
Every day.
We're busy eating the one seed cherry, but we don't see the Bajan cherries anymore.
Yes.
Aloes, the Latin name for aloes is what? Aloes barbadiensis. And then there's another one that you have across St. Lucie and the East Coast, the maple, the agave maple barbadiensis. And then there's the black-belly sheep. I am saying that there's a whole host of things that are indigenous to this country or that are thriving in this country, that are associated with this country. And we need to be able to do a better job at isolating those things, because we have a natural competitive advantage and a credible story to tell. Yes. Now, having said and discovered that the grapefruit comes from here, when last you see a grapefruit tree?
This morning at the farm.
That's you.
We have over 1,000 trees.
That's you. When last you see a grapefruit tree across Bajan's houses?
Hardly ever see any.
And that's the point I'm making. So that I've said to the Ministry of Agriculture, these are the things that we need to propagate. Every Bajan should be planting a grapefruit tree in the backyard for 2020. Just to begin to start that. Because it is from about here. Secondly, where's the doctor? It's good for you, no? Come and tell us about the grapefruit quickly before I put down the mic.
The grapefruit is very good for you. You
I
should
can
plant
say
it.
that, but tell them why.
Well, it's very nutritious. It's dense in nutrients. And yes, it's also helpful for weight loss. It's an amazing liver detox. So plant one.
Thank you. All right? So you're going to help us be able to get the message out.
Yeah. My last.
And more importantly, there are a number of young Barbadians I'm meeting like yourself now who are interested in farming. I want a register of all of you. And I want my message to go out from tonight. If you are young and you are Barbadian and interested in farming in this country or in Suriname, reach out to my office, and I'll ask Roy to put out a special email for this and to put it into the press, because governments don't trade. Governments don't grow. It is people. And if we can find the people who have the passion, the hardest thing is to have the passion. Puffy is at the top of his game because he got a passion for it. Jason is at the top of his game because he got a passion for it. So we need to find those who have passion in agriculture and want to move to the next level. And send us the information. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, good night.
Puffy, I feel like I got you hostage up here, but
That's all right.
don't mind.
Madam Prime Minister, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. And
Good
I said
evening.
that for a reason. All right, the people in St. Lucie would understand. I am born from St. Lucie and under the age of 35. Therefore, I feel rather qualified to speak tonight. It's a pleasure to have the Prime Minister here in St. Lucie, and I think I want to support the statements of the good doctor and our agriculturist as well, because it's going to segue nicely into what I'm going to add, which is about education. So say very quickly in terms of school meals, very ambitious project to get children to eat what they don't want to eat. What I would say is make it palatable to the children. Whatever it is you're going to prepare, make it palatable. I am an educator, some 10 years or so experience. So I know when the cuckoo gets thrown away, but this in the cuckoo beef stew. So if you're gonna do that in school, means you need to make whatever you make palatable. However, now that we're on the topic of education, I want to say make 3 quick points because I have to be in town for 9 o'clock. And
I don't think so. Call whoever you're going to see and tell them you'll be there for 9:30. Because I don't want to visit you in the police station, or I don't want to hear about you on the 7 o'clock news.
Yes, Madam Prime Minister. The 3 points I want to make quickly, I'm going to make them in reverse order. There's a lot of talk now about education and what we're going to do in terms of education in Barbados going forward. Let's talk about middle schools and changing things and all that kind of stuff. But we have an education system that has worked for us in Barbados in the past. So my question is, what are we doing differently now than we did in the past? Perhaps if we look back to what some of the things we did that worked then, we'll be able to get these things to work now without making any major changes. So my first thing is stigma. There's a stigma that has become attached to secondary schools in Barbados. And that stigma has produced results or lack thereof from the students in the school because they feel as though they can't produce. But every single school in Barbados, secondary schools, produce a lawyer, a doctor. All may not have produced politicians as yet. But it's not only that. We have our painters, we have our artisans, our mechanics, our nurses. Everybody has a part to play in society. So if I had the opportunity to do it, and you may have the power to do so, Madam Prime Minister, a destigmatization program, letting the children in Barbados know that we have success stories from every secondary school in Barbados. Let them know it's not where you go to school, but what you do there. As a late colleague of mine would have said, your attitude and not your aptitude determines your altitude. So destigmatize the schools. That's my first point. And then point number 2, back to basics.
Can I pause one at a time so that we just take them off? I can let you. I know you won't go, but I also want to interact with you. The bottom line is that I entirely agree with you about the destigmatizing, but that is not in and of itself going to be enough. But I want to say, my Director of Finance and Economic Affairs went to Parkinson. The former Chief of Staff of the Barbados Defence Force went to Parkinson Secondary School. Hartley Henry and the Deputy Principal of Mona University went to St. George Secondary School. I can go on and find David Eswick and Trevor Clark from Bartel BT, who was also our ambassador in Geneva, went to Princess Margaret. I can go on and on. But what we want to do goes beyond the destigmatization. What we want to do is to turn every school in Barbados into a school of excellence, a top school, because we have different things that people can excel in. And if we can make each school a center of excellence, and if we can ask children not to choose at 10 and 11, but to choose more at 14 or 13, then they will have a better opportunity to make the right choice and then to be exposed to those things that will lift them up. You ask why is it that our system is not working for us? Because it's not that our system isn't working for us any differently, it's that our judgment is different. Before we lived in a Barbados that was happy that people could be educated to 7th standard and leave. That's not good enough anymore. Before we lived in a Barbados where people were malleable and being able to be put. The 1940s British educational reform was about educating an elite and then making the rest of the population manageable and herdable.
Right. To my second point, and thank you for those comments in reply. For my second point, back to basics. You're making a very important point, but somewhere along the line of progress, of getting better, we've gotten worse. You now have more children leaving the primary school system in Barbados without the basics than ever before. And in my estimation, from what I've seen, the reason is an overemphasis on examination scores and results. That is not to say you cannot have an examination, but let the examination do what it is supposed to do, as opposed to making it, as you say, determining
Are you in
child's
primary or
lifetime.
secondary? So
Primary.
therefore, you know about the criterion reference test,
The criterion
right?
reference test.
And you know that the reason why the criterion reference test was introduced was to be able to assess what a child knows and doesn't know. And you know that really and truly that it is not being used for years now in the proper way. And I've met with the Minister of Education because that test at 7 and at 9 is to help a teacher know what are the gaps and the deficiencies that they have to correct.
But
Correct?
herein lies the problem now, agreed.
But hold on, I am done yet. Secondly, that information at 7 and 9, along with the other information, when a child leaves primary and goes into secondary, what do they walk with besides the new school books and a new school bag? What do they carry from the primary school that tells their new teacher that these are the skills or the gaps that this child has, and this is how you're going to need to be able to focus on their deficiencies or their strengths to move forward. You understand what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying perfectly. The problem is not the test, and not the test is not working. The problem is you have a system now where the ministry has adopted some ideas on education where they don't believe in streaming. They believe in a mixed ability classroom, which has its advantages in certain systems. If you have the resources, it could be an extra person, teacher aid, that kind of stuff. The problem we have in our system is that we identify the problems. Even if you don't do the criterion for test and you do an end of term test, go with me for a moment here. If a child has an average at 6 years old in infants B, below 40, it means that most of what they should have already known, they do not know. Agreed?
I agreed, and that's why they need to correct it before we keep propelling them upwards without doing it.
But under our current system where we don't stream the classroom in this mixability, we put that child up into class 1 in a mixability classroom, and then we try to teach them concepts on top of concepts not already
I don't
grasped.
think that the problem is as simple as streaming or mixability. I think that the issue is that we need to be satisfied that children are learning at their own rate and pace. And unless we do that, we are unfairing and putting the children at a disadvantage. That is why we changed the age at which people could take the common entrance. That is why we created schools like the Alma Parish. I am now being faced, and I've told the Ministry of Education this as well, that we need to be able to ensure that the system can accommodate all capacities again. But I don't want to get into a deep discussion on education because you got to get to town and you're not getting there for 9 o'clock.
I totally agree with what you said, but basically what I'm saying is...
But I give you the assurance that Santia will be leading a number of town hall meetings across the country on the state of education. So I trust that you will come out and help share your views on it too.
Certainly. And I agree with what you're saying. What I'm saying is that we're not being allowed, the system as it is now. The right things are there, but they're not being allowed to work in the way that they should. But to my final point is we in this thing together. Since you've been elected to office, Madam Prime Minister, there's one thing you said that always stays with me. We Barbados. I love it. I think everybody should say now, we Barbados. Because we are all a part of this and we're in this thing together. And there is currently an atmosphere in education that is not conducive to doing the things that we want to do. There's tension between the students and the teachers, the parents and the teachers, the administration and the teachers. And until we can bring this Cold War type of situation almost to an end, all of the nice things that we want to roll out for education are not going to be achieved because there's this friction among the parties. And go with me here on my final point as I conclude this point. If I have a good student, and I have a class of 20, and all 20 become good students, I have a good class. If all of the teachers at the school are able to adopt something similar to me, we have 20 good classes, we have a good school. If we have 25 secondary school, got 25 good secondary school, you have a good education system. So we in this thing together, we need to work together. And that is the few words I'd like to say on education in terms of getting ideas from St. Lucie to we Barbados. Thank you for your indulgence, Madam Prime Minister.
I also thank you for your frankness. Believe you me, Santia is going to be coming about. I'm glad that she's back fully recovered with us. And I imagine that this year is going to be the year when you will see the full extent of her energy and bringing to bear the reform of the system, but also weeding out some of the difficulties. And it's not going to be weeded out without conversation, without talking with each other, rather than talking to and at each other. So thank you, my brother.
Thank you, Madam Prime Minister. Thank you.
Drive safely.
Michael Webster.
Hi, good night. Oh gosh. Over there.
I think that I'm in a state of amazement here because after returning from university in 1972, it has taken me 48 years to have my Prime Minister come and sit in an atmosphere like this and give all the young people in this country hope. Where in my life I have virtually given up hope of seeing something like this happen. After every elections, everybody disappeared. You couldn't find anybody. How come my Prime Minister can come and sit down tonight and give all of the young people Prime Minister, I thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think you have given us a tremendous amount of hope here tonight. I am willing to play my part. I have been in agriculture 48 years. You're going to see in the front row one of the investors who will be investing in agriculture in Barbados in a big way. We have meetings with the Minister of Agriculture this week and next week, and a couple other meetings. So we will be helping. But like I say, for the young people coming in every area of life, not only agriculture, you have given us tremendous hope tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi.
Can I say before, and Puffy, I'm conscious that you're still here. Oba, I know that you are here.
Chilling, literally.
But before you start, I want to make the point, Peter, that St. Lucie has too much land lying down that needs to be turned into productive use. I really, really want the names of those people who are interested seriously in farming so that we can twin people like yourself, sir, with some of the youngsters, the other young man who spoke, because part and parcel of any profession is being exposed to those who are elders in the profession and who can teach by dint of experience. A textbook don't teach you everything that you need to know. You need to be able to talk with people. Jason, I think you were the one who said it, that instead of fellas rushing out of the dressing room to go to the next event or whatever, that sometimes you just need to sit down and talk. And I can tell you, I am conscious that I am probably the last Prime Minister of this country that would have known and spoken to every Prime Minister before. It's a fact. So that to that extent, I am probably a bridge to the past, but a bridge to the future. And that in me, I have a responsibility to share, because that's the only way people will learn in this business. But whether it is farming or sports or whatever it is, people need to do more sharing and mentoring. So thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I think we have about a half hour, so I'm going to try to just frame and get everybody in. And Oba, I know that you were to speak, so that I'm going to bring you to help wrap up at the end. Puffy's going to stay here for now. No,
Yeah.
you're moving, yeah? And I'll bring you at the end.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Hi, good night, everybody. My name is Leo Leroy Carrington, right? I'm a very simple person, and I'm very concerned as well, right? I'll ask this question to Puffy. I have two very simple questions. You've traveled obviously across the world, and you've seen a set of things. How would you compare the transportation in other countries compared to the transportation in Barbados? The public transportation, sorry. If you have an opinion on that.
Uh, Public transportation, I mean, different countries have different means and different ways of doing things. Firstly, let me say that. Um, some methods might work better for other countries than others. You know, some people might have the resources to implement certain means of transportation, while others may not. And I think that's fair to say. Um, there's some countries that have really good
I think I help you, Buffy.
transport systems and some
What
that
we
don't.
want to say is that Barbados' transport system needs modernizing.
I'm trying to
And
understand
that's what
exactly.
we're in the process of doing.
Right. Now, I totally understand that, right? But I am very deeply concerned because, I've seen a lot of things being implemented recently that I don't, we don't necessarily agree with because, for example, we see a lot of things happen in the industry that is just like really, really ridiculous, right? Like what happened this week with the minibus driver driving on the sidewalk or something like that, right?
Inside lane.
Yeah, exactly. Those type of things concern me a lot.
Madness.
Exactly. It's totally madness. And the thing is, we've not seen anything being done to really help develop that whole industry because at the end of the day I've never personally seen an industry that has so much loopholes, so much errors, so much problems in it, and nothing being done about changing it and moving it forward.
I'm not sure that you can say that nothing is being done.
Well,
I think in the process, because I think Minister Phillips and Minister Duguid will tell you that they've been in the process of dealing with starting to look at how we can work with the drivers and the owners. One of the problems is that, especially in the privately owned PSVs, if you pay drivers on the basis of how much they earn, you're asking them to hustle, which means that you're asking them to engage in bad behavior in order to earn a living.
Correct.
So the manner of compensation has to change. Secondly, the ministry is supposed to be bringing legislation that will penalize the owners and not just the drivers, so that the kind of risks that are being taken will be a thing of the past. Thirdly, the easiest way to know whether somebody has gone off route is to have a GPS, and therefore we are going to make GPSs mandatory in all forms of public transportation, but as a matter also of public safety, so that if people are taken off route or they are wherever, that we know how we can find them, because it is just a matter of public safety. You can't be playing to the public without adhering to standards that protect the public.
Well, I totally agree with you, to be very honest. And I obviously, because I'm not speaking from a point where I'm just, thinking of this today, right? What you just said about, implementing GPS, etc. Why would we implement GPS, or how would you implement rather GPS into PSVs, for example, when an owner could go down the road and buy a GPS from Tom, Walmart could buy GPS from Amazon, and they could all control their own GPS. But how does that benefit the passengers of Barbados? How does that benefit anybody else but the owner themselves? Now, the reason I'm saying this is because I'm a very concerned person. And personally, if we have a problem with something, I like to change it. You understand? So about 3 to 4 years ago, just to make this very short, we studied the industry a little bit. And what we found was that one of the biggest issues in the industry was control. How do you actually control these people, control the drivers, control if they're going off-road, on-road, control that you just said about they're being paid commission, etc. There has to be some better way to do it. And we've managed to do that in what I have done. To be very honest, we've created a company called TransLink Barbados Limited. Some people might have seen it. Some people might not have seen it, to be very honest, where we've actually created a whole entire platform that merges GPSs, etc., onto one, etc. You can also, we've actually have like an extremely huge number of PSVs on the platform already. Probably we're the only company that actually has maybe the largest amount of PSVs under one body. to be very honest. We work with tons of drivers across Barbados, and we're trying to bring some type of normalcy to that entire industry, to be very honest.
Have you met with the ministry yet?
We've met with nearly every single important transportation industry in Barbados except the Transport Board, and we've been pushed aside, to be very honest. That's the truth.
Well, fret not thyself, my brother. Minister Phillips will make sure that you have the opportunity to meet with the ministry and the Transport Board.
Thank you very much.
Take care. What's your name?
My name is Leroy Carrington.
And I don't think, Leo, I'm glad that you've come here to share this, but this is the point that I want to make. This government is open to ideas and open to airing the house. If we don't do it, I don't know where the next brilliant ideas are coming from. My responsibility is to create a level playing field. And therefore, if we make opportunities available to you, what we've said, look, we get a lot of unsolicited responses. What we do, you write me with an unsolicited proposal, we go out, I've told the ministries, go out and advertise and say, look, is there anybody else who is interested in doing ABC, which is the subject of the unsolicited proposal? If there is, then we assess them on merit. If there isn't, then we go with who is there. So Minister Phillips will make the appointment for you, but I want the innovation. We have a problem in this country, by the way, with scheduling, huh? And that's half the problem at the Transport Board, the sanitation, courts, private doctors, private lawyers, public lawyers, everybody. We have a problem with scheduling and appointments, and we need to be able to use the software and to use also applying our hearts, Canon Goodrich, to wisdom, to be able to deal with the issues of scheduling. So, but we can get through it, but we just need to know that it is a problem first.
Right, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yes?
Yes, hi, good evening. Juliet Went.
Hi, Juliet. How are you?
I'm okay, thank you. How are you?
Good to see you. I haven't seen you since school.
Since school. Okay, well, my comment is with regards to agriculture and food security. And I think that I sincerely and very deeply believe that food security is something that we can achieve. I think we can bring down those imports with very little effort. I have started my growing fruit trees, and I found that it's easier than growing vegetables because it requires, it's less labor intensive. And I think, we have the climate, we have the sun, we have the soil, and we have the water. Especially in St. Lucie, we get, a lot more rain, I think, than other parts of the island. When it's raining here, it's dry on the south, oftentimes, I've been told. So I think that we have the climate where we can do that. My concern or my request really is that I have been to soil conservation in St. Andrew a few times looking for fruit trees, and oftentimes they don't have.
I'm wondering if you all had a bug in my office this morning. Because this is the same conversation I had with soil conservation this morning and the Scotland district thing. So believe you me, a lot of systems have broken down in this country, and we're really trying to build back up. And I'm being straight with you. The first 18, 19 months, I spent a large amount of my time trying to stabilize the economy and trying to stabilize and do the debt restructuring. We're at a stage now where I'm able to start to fine-tune and to look with the ministers at certain things, because in fairness to them, a lot of ministers would not have had the flexibility while we were also trying to stabilize. We're not out of the woods yet, but we can be far more innovative with a number of things that we're doing. And because we've restructured the debt, there are more people coming forward willing to partner with government or to do things with government that give us more options. So I hear you, I know the problem, and I hope that you and others can help us work to be able to propagate the number of fruit trees so that we can share. That's one of the reasons why we've gone with the initiative.
Yeah. The other thing is with regards to diversity. So I think there are a couple of people who are trying to grow different types of fruits. I think in the hotels, people always want fresh tropical fruits. And I think we have the climate that we can have all sorts of, I mean, if you look in places like the Philippines or, you know, anything along that belt, you'll see they have a tremendous amount of different types of fruits. Maybe perhaps we could make it easier, because the same soil conservation has a long list of exotic fruits, but they don't really actually.
Can I ask you to meet with them too, please?
With
soil conservation.
To meet with them.
Yeah. Not with a view to ask them what they have, but with a view to discussing your ideas with them and feed it in. Because that's the only way. Look, if the public sector of Barbados has to be supported by an engaged citizenry. And if Barbadians are engaged and we can get public servants willing to meet with them and be getting the ideas flowing both ways, I can tell you that there's going to be a big difference. I also am going to ask Senator Wiggins to speak to you, because the truth is that I don't think I've ever seen a greater variety of fruit in my life than I've seen in Suriname. You understand? So that we need to look and see what are some of the other things that we can be growing here and that can survive in this climate, and then also working with farmers down there to supplement what we're not doing here.
Yep, okay.
Can that work?
You know, I mean, I like fruit. That's
Senator Wiggins,
bulk of my bulk of my.
And I'll set up the meeting with Scotland, the soil conservation for you, and the people down at Haggett's in St. Andrew. Yeah?
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Good evening, and apologies for saying good evening. I noticed that on the island everyone says good night, but from England we say good evening until it's night, time to go to bed. So what I'd like to first of all say is thank you, Prime Minister, for welcoming me back to the island. As you can tell, I've only been on the island 9 months.
As the Ghanaians would say, Akwaba.
Thank you. As a returning national, I felt that it would be best to try and bring some of what I have learned abroad to the island. So I'm not going to labour my 3 points. I'm going to go through them very quickly, and they are all to do with education. The first thing that I would like to try and see if it could be implemented would be a system where at the end of the schooling, for students to be able to be interviewed in the school by the teachers to ask them where they're going and what they're doing and what their plans are going to be moving forward. So that tonight, talking about agriculture, you could collate a group of students who are all interested in agriculture and start working with them to their passion before they change their mind. And that would be the same across every school. The second thing, very quickly, would be, since I was an educator 14 years after I left the British Army, and the one most successful thing that we had was a system where students were coaching students from different age groups. And that speaks to the communication of students and being able to articulate things to each other. But what it also did was it made them feel more responsible through their schooling. And that, on this island, would be fantastic in terms of them helping each other and appreciating each other and helping with the diversity of things. And the last thing, which, for me, from a personal point of view, sorry, actually, I've forgotten it. 1 second. I have it written down, so I'm not going anywhere. Oh, yes, of course. From a personal point of view, as a head of year, which I believe you call a senior teacher here, as a head of year, I found it really, really great for some of our schools collectively in England. We had what we call an IFAB panel. And what they did was, if there were students who were disaffected in any individual school, guidance counsellors or assistant heads would meet together, and what they would do is they would offer the student a place in a different school, so that they had a new start with new people around them, and it would help them to maybe re-engage with school. And that worked really well with students who were not attending. Now, I know you've done this fantastic thing of collating kids and putting them in a central location to work. However, there are a number of students below that who may be turning up, may not be turning up, and it's about getting those people to not have to be shipped off to somewhere to work together. I'm wondering if we could put together a panel of not ministers, but junior ministers, maybe some representative from all the schools, maybe a guidance counsellor and social services, to be able to talk about individual students who are looking like they are beginning to fall out of the system. That way, we will save a lot more of our students, before they turn to criminality or just fall off the system.
I take it you were in education in England.
I was, yes.
Have you met with anybody in the ministry here yet?
Can I be honest and open?
Yeah.
I have written you a letter, and you have answered, but I've not heard anything since. So I have done.
Well, let me try and get, because the ministry has had a number of major changes in the last few months. So let us arrange for you to meet with somebody from the ministry and see how best you can work in the system, because we need all good people helping from all different angles. That's the truth. Okay?
Thank you very much for your ear.
Can I ask, where's...
Oh, no, I don't need to get paid. Oh, well, maybe once. Make it big.
Khalil, I can't see the others, but can you take his information for me and let us make sure we can link him? Thanks.
Thank you very much for the chance to speak.
You're most welcome, sir. Puffy, I know you may have to run off, or you're good?
Yeah.
You have to run off?
In a few, yeah.
That's cool. So I just want to thank you for being here. And I want to say to the chap and others who started, I think that the idea also is to be able to have persons come and help us break the ice to get these conversations going.
Surely.
And against that background, I really want to thank Jason, yourself. Oba, I know you're now coming back home. Is that correct? Yeah? But if you want to speak, feel free to come to the mic. We've got about 4 or 5 others. We have until just about 9:30, so if we can move through quickly, because we're conscious that people need also to get back to where they're going. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Prime Minister. Good evening to the audience. I want to thank you for this important developmental conversation, and that is where I'm going to begin in posing my question. What is the commitment of your government in mainstreaming disability in these development conversations and in development generally? That's one of the things that I want to find out. We had an extensive set of interaction about education here this evening, and I know that your government is committed to educational reform, and I want to find out to what extent will that process involve persons with disabilities and center their issues. You were portfolio minister at the time we started mainstreaming persons with disabilities into quote-unquote normal schools, and I wonder, and I imagine you wonder as well, about the extent to which it has been a success. What metrics are we using to measure the success? And are we removing the impediments to mainstreaming persons with disabilities in our schools?
Look, I believe that if you care enough, you have to make the steps to make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the reasons why the first area of teacher reform and teacher training that was undertaken when I was Minister of Education was special needs education, to be able to facilitate the mainstreaming to which you spoke.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the difficulty is that a lot of things that we put in place, I've learned, have in fact been stalled or removed. And that's why we're trying to recalibrate the system. I'll give you a small example. We used to test every child at 3 and 5 years old for hearing, speech, and sight impediments. Why? Because if the child had a disability or a lack of capacity in hearing or in speech or in sight, you'd be in a position to deal with it. And the truth is, whether we like it or not, the numbers are usually between about 7-8% of people who will normally have a problem straight off. That has been abandoned. Now, I would like to say to you that I could start it back straight, but we're in an IMF program where we're also having to try to build back critical things that have dropped. And therefore, we are going to do all of these things, but we have to do them as we build and as we start to grow. So that commitment is there. With respect to accessibility at schools or in public spaces, I've said to the Minister of Public Works that we need to be able to have a program that looks at making all of the sidewalks in our main towns, starting with them, accessible. And after our main towns, we then need to look at Highway 1 and Highway 7 across the board. But with the best will in the world, it has to be done over time because, as I said, I don't have a full deck of money to play with. So believe you me, the commitment is there and we will continue to deal with it. Similarly, we need to be able, and we've done it with the amendment of the procurement rules. I would imagine that the most difficult thing for a parent who has a child who is differently able is wondering what is going to happen to that child when that parent passes on. And I've agreed that our government has, through its procurement, to begin to ensure that a percentage of our procurement is reserved for persons who are differently able, so that we can make sure that they can sustain themselves and make a basic living. And we're in the process now of being able to do that. The management, the procurement, new procurement rules, we've already done some amendments, but we need now to do further amendments and also to introduce the policies across ministries that can look out and see what are the things that persons who are differently able are in fact producing. It's against that background that I think that the charitable work done by the Derek Smith school in my constituency is absolutely critical, because what it is also doing is training people not just at the age of school level, but young adults too. A range of skills from culinary arts right back through to wood and pottery and a whole host of things. And they have the little shop there at the front where, as you know, they sell stuff also that is as a result of the production of persons.
I thank you for your multiple and various commitments. I'm going to ask that you consider mainstreaming disability in that reform conversation that Minister Bradshaw is going to engage in.
Agreed.
I am going to also ask that we consider adding equal opportunity legislation or non-discrimination legislation to the legislative agenda very soon.
Thank you, and we will take it on board. But it's a good thing to see you, and I feel very proud to see you and how far you've come. Truly.
Thank you.
Thank you, love.
Good night.
Yes, ma'am.
So, I know that Puffy mentioned earlier about using social media to reach out to persons that have been successful in their industry. For me, I would say that I use social media not just for the glamour, what young persons may use it for, but I reach out and to people that I would say are like-minded and are somewhere along the same journey that I am on. I have reached out, they have helped me, but...
What do you do?
Well, I have dreams to be a motivational speaker and help persons, so what I am asking you right now is if you could get persons like Oprah, persons like Warren Buffett to to take time from their busy schedule to actually visit and help young persons in this country, like me, who have reached. I know it's a lot to ask, but I'm just asking.
Don't mind the people who are trying to distract you. Listen, whether I will certainly tell you that we will try, but I also want you to recognize that there's some people locally and regionally who can also give you that same experience. And part of the thing is that the social media and the media that we have creates a celebrity culture. But within our region are some of the brightest and best people that you will ever meet. Have you ever met
100%.
Sagari?
No, please.
Well, if you ever listen to Sagari, and Jason can tell you that you are probably going to meet one of the most humble men that you could ever meet, but full of wisdom and full of capacity to lend his knowledge and expertise to you about what life is about in the same way that Jason did. Similarly, I'm sure that Puffy would tell you, Rihanna, believe you me, is one of the most gracious and humble people that you will ever meet. So I think what we're going to have to try and do is to create platforms for Barbadian and Caribbean people also who have succeeded to share their story, because in a very real way, they may have more in common with you and where you are at than Warren Buffett might be able to have. As much as we want to hear Warren Buffett.
Okay,
Does
thank
that
you.
make sense?
Yes, please, and I look forward to it.
But I also thank you for your courage. What's your name?
Zaria Griffith.
And you're finished school now, or what?
No, I'm at BCC studying media and journalism.
Oh, I see.
I must
Well,
commend you.
Can I say to you that in this audience, there are 3 people that you need to speak to before you leave. And I'm going to put them in the middle of it. 1, Roy Morris, my press secretary, is a former managing editor of newspapers.
That's my
2.
teacher.
Well, then you can leave him one side for now. Then there is Carol Roberts somewhere in here who is hiding behind Dwayne Grisette out there, but who I don't know that there are many better interviewers than Carol Roberts when it comes to interviewing people. And then there is Dr. Leacock, who is an exceptional broadcast journalist and who also was general manager of CBC in her day as well. And I'm sure that they can do more for you at the moment than Warren Buffett.
Facts. I must commend her on choosing the motivational speaker route, though, because that's something unorthodox. You know, you don't really hear kids coming up wanting to do something like that. So
in fact, there was another young lady at Frederick Smith School again who came up and who expressed the same desire and who recognized that the power of motivation among her peers
absolutely
is something that she could do and had the ability to do. So I think that you'll find a lot more people. And as you said, what a motivational speaker does is to allow us to reflect and think. I used to get up in the morning and the first thing I used to do is pick up my phone. I confess now that this job has brought me to the state where the first thing I do is to keep my eyes closed for a half hour and meditate. And I do it for good reason, because I need the time to meditate, to pray, and to be able then to order my thoughts for the day. And there are things that you read that you may want to reflect on at that point in time. So whether it is motivational speakers or motivational writers, Puffy?
You never know. We need them.
I think you can do some too.
Yeah?
Good night, everyone. My question is really on entrepreneurship. Me as a young entrepreneur from St. Lucie, and having to go out, into the world of work at a couple places, Ministry of Labor and other places as well, before deciding to start my own business. Well, not really deciding to start my own business, because I was forced to start my own business because it was in the retrenchment program and I lost my job then. And the last 6 years of entrepreneurship has been very hard for me in terms, I guess, with the economic decline and stuff. And I mean,
how long? What have you been doing, and how long you been doing it?
Well, we do things like print T-shirts and bring like lessons and different little things like that we do, not advertising at all. We bring,
go right ahead and advertise, my brother.
All right. It's been very hard in terms of bringing things and trying to sell back to people. You want to make a profit. You don't want to kill people, and it's very hard. You still got to pay rent. Still got to pay staff. And I want to know, what...
I think in fairness to you, you've been setting out on a path of entrepreneurship at probably one of the worst times in this country's history economically. I pray, and that's why we're working as hard as we are, that we can see growth return and that we can have the disposable income that we're increasing in people's pockets, be able to make a difference to entrepreneurs like yourself. So let me also give an example. 15 years ago, 10 years ago, there were a lot of people in what I call lifestyle-related industries, people doing manicures and pedicures and more gardeners and landscapers and different types of things. And once the economy started to contract, all of the things that were optional got cut out of people's budget. One of the reasons why in last year's budget we did the amendments to the income tax was to start to put more money in people's pocket. One of the reasons why we're settling CLICO and British American and trying to be able to do all of the payments that we have to do is that the more money we can put back out there, because the government of Barbados has owed a lot of people for a long time. When we became the government, we discovered that the government owed away $1.9 billion, of which 1.4 was to third parties and 500 million was to government agencies. Now, we've been bringing that down significantly. But in bringing it down, it means that between that and the economy growing, that people will now start, hopefully, to hire people that they were not using before, go for manicures, buy T-shirts, do things that they weren't doing before, so that money is turned in the economy again. And then once the construction industry comes back full-blown, what does the average construction worker do at 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon? I don't need to tell you. But you get what I'm saying? So maybe what I'm trying to tell you is don't give up. Right. Because I think that the economy is about to turn the corner and that the opportunities are going to be there for you. You've gone through the school of hard knocks.
It's true.
But you are now going to be in a position to be able to see how best you can meet the demand. Because remember, you also got to sell what people want.
It's true.
Not what you think you should sell. And therefore, that's why the market surveys are doing the informal things to see where the need is and the demand is so that you can meet the need.
Right.
Right? And I want to say that we also want to have some financial literacy clinics established regionally in the north, in the center, in the south, so that people can come and learn informally, and also to see, especially with the banks only paying you 0.01% on interest for savings, how best you can invest a portion of your savings in other things.
Actually get a return.
And get a return. You got it, my brother.
And, I would like to say, thank you for your points as well. And I guess on behalf of me and my company and the people of St. Lucie, I could not really leave here without leaving this gift with you. And I hope that you appreciate it and that you love it.
Thank you.
Lessons bright too.
Hold a minute. Because you apologizing for advertising, but I ain't gonna advertise you. That means that I can now become an adopted Lucian. I now know where I gotta get key rings from. Thank you so much, my brother.
Thank you very much.
What's your name?
Brian Gooden.
Sorry?
Brian Gooden.
Brian Gooden. And where do you operate from?
Palmetto Street next to the Parliament Building.
So everybody who needs T-shirts, cups, or key rings, Brian Gooden, Palmetto Street. Next one. We're going to start wrapping up. So these are the last three people.
Prime Minister.
All right, hello, good night, sorry.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to ask, what you have, plans as regard rainwater harvesting for the agriculture, because within Barbados, most of the agriculture is really rain-fed agriculture. And we actually produce a lot of things that, with the elements, and you have climate change and all of that. If we would do things like capture quite a lot of the water that run off farms and things like that, we could actually move from the, when the the rainy season right into the dry season, because the climate situation has really changed drastically.
Agreed.
Within agriculture, you have another problem, a serious problem with the monkeys. I think, and I don't hear anybody really talking about addressing that whatsoever. If we do the rainwater harvesting, you would find that small farmers could be, and it has to be done where you actually produce these things. You actually need to have greenhouses and that type of thing. You need to also regulate you're using the fans where you have the solar energy, and you put the fans to the west of the greenhouse, and then to the east you have water chiller, and that causes the air to regulate the temperature within the greenhouse condition. So I feel that if this is done, we could produce a lot more within Barbados. And if you deal with the monkey situation, we could produce a lot more.
Well, what's your name, sir?
Michael Braffett.
Mr. Braffett, I want to thank you for coming. I'm going to the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Water Resources. The issue of rainwater harvesting is something that we've started to talk about, largely because, like you, many others have come up and said, look, too much water is just running into the sea, whether it is here, whether it is in St. Philip, other parts. And if we can dam some water and also have the water available for farmers through the harvesting.
And you know what would be a good idea? In the schools and things like that, we need to actually do some rainwater harvesting within the school environment, and things like the flushing of the toilets and all of that type of thing, where you have demonstration fields within the schools. We should have those fitted out where people could be able to grow under greenhouse conditions, because if we talking about agriculture and you don't take the uncertainty out of it, because this climate change situation, this is a huge threat to farming.
Dread.
So unless these things are really done, and you have to look at the best people in this thing. You got to look at the Israelis, and you have to look at those examples. And if that is done in Barbados, you could find that quite a lot of production could be done, because you could have small farmers growing onions, high-value crops, and you wouldn't be constrained by having to wait on the rain and all of that.
I will share this with you. One of the things that agriculture shared with me, onion production was significantly up last year. And we want to be able to make sure it can continue to increase, because there's no reason why we should be importing onions both here. Okay? But I thank you, and perhaps I can talk to you. You're from St. Lucie, no? So, do you have a relationship with the schools in St. Lucie? No. But perhaps I can help to build a bridge between you. Minister Phillips is still here. If we can build a bridge with you and the schools in terms of the agriculture, because I know that the Darrell Jordan School has a little area there, and the other primary schools need to have it as well. Yes?
Hey, good night, everybody. My name is Theolika. I apologize in advance for any grammatical errors I may make. I don't have a lot of experience in public speaking.
Don't sweat that, Star.
All right, so I'll be brief. The two topics I really want to touch on are e-commerce and manufacturing. So I'll start with e-commerce. I think it would be great if we can have a platform where we can have all Barbadian businesses aggregated onto a single platform for that would make it easy to find, so that basically there will be a lot of convenience where it comes to shopping locally. And you mentioned the CSME earlier. We can really take advantage of that with the free movement of goods and services. Also, this would be good for entrepreneurship in terms of having a digital online space for stores and businesses where you can search your favorite store and search their products and everything, and basically find everything that you need in one place where everything is regularly updated. Whereas in contrast with stores now, we don't have a good online presence with stores in Barbados.
In other words, one that is there that will drive traffic to it, because people know it's a central thing.
A high traffic marketplace, basically.
No problem.
I think this would be a really good idea.
I think so too.
I have a team that have embarked on this project, and we're actually in works of it. So that would be really good for people to really don't have to worry about the stifling cost of rent and overheads and stuff like that.
Can I ask you when you finish to come and meet Jonathan here?
Yes,
to the
I have.
site?
Yeah, I've spoken to Jonathan. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we'll work on it. Thanks. What's your
Thank
name?
you. My name is Theo Licott.
Thank you.
Yeah. One more thing, it would be manufacturing. I think it would be great if Barbados could be self-sufficient when it comes to manufacturing. Right now we're in Industry 4.0, digital revolution, and right now Barbados is a sleeping giant when it comes to technology. Because of the small size, Barbados is able to capitalize on technology way faster than bigger countries like, let's say, the UK or United States or anything. So what would you say if we could manufacture bus parts, obsolete bus parts, because we have a huge problem with obsolescence. We can manufacture those bus parts in 24 hours and for a fraction of the price that you would have to pay and go through complex supply chains to get them into Barbados.
You're thinking of what kind of manufacturing process? Through 3D printing?
Yeah, digital manufacturing, 3D printing.
I tell you, I swear you all had a bug in my office, in the cabinet office today, because I spoke to IDC about us being able to create a special purpose vehicle that looks at investing in areas where the private sector is reluctant to take the first step because they're risk averse. It happens all the time. Errol Barrow built the Hilton because the private sector at the time would not have built a hotel of that scale. So sometimes you have to have state entrepreneurial activity in order to lead the way.
Exactly.
So I definitely agree that we need to develop some 3D printing capacity.
Yeah.
They're looking at the feasibility of it. I can't tell you offhand
Actually,
until they come back with the report.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, my company, I actually have a comprehensive proposal on the table if you want to take a look at it.
I'd love to see
yeah,
it.
We can do things like I said, that's only a tip of the iceberg. Like, let's say in case of climate change and coral bleaching, we see a reduction in the coral reefs in Barbados and the wider region. We can actually manufacture coral in complex ways that were not before possible through digital manufacturing to encourage the growth of coral algae to grow more corals, and we can actually do something.
Let Jonathan set up a meeting. I gotta finish the estimates process the next week, 10 days.
Yeah.
Then I'm taking literally a break for 6 or 7 days.
Yes.
When I come back early February, I'd like to meet with you.
That would
Okay?
be great. I look forward to it. Thank you.
Star.
Yes.
I'd said 3, but I'll take the 4th, and this is it. Yes, sir, and then I'll take you, ma'am.
My name is Wendell Clark. I want to say tonight that if you had to take a vote on the speeches that were made tonight, you'll see that 75% of them was done recommending agriculture. And I want to add to that percentage as well. I want to say that I think agriculture is going to be the answer for this country. I love my country, and I want to make sure that it succeeds in everything I do. I think agriculture is what we refer to offers what we call sustainable development. And this is what this country needs at this particular time. We don't want to be developing today and then tomorrow we'll go back and build back up. So I think agriculture lends all the length for manufacturing, all the things that you can just imagine. I look and see the history of most developed countries, and the basis was always agriculture. So we know the answer. And I think now that we have to go forward and make sure that we can do it. It is stated that in the Western Hemisphere, we are very good at talking, but we are very slow at implementing. And I don't want this. I hope that what is said here tonight be captured in a form that it will be implemented. I hope that is done. I further want to say that, just to lend some of my history, I want to add to what you said tonight, what we discover, the peculiar things to Barbados and agriculture. We talk about the grapefruit and all those other things, that's correct. But in my experience, a couple of years ago, I was vacationing in Boston, and I decided to go around to look at the supermarket shelves to see if there were anything on the shelves that come from Barbados. Trust me, saw nothing then. My passion then was to come back to Barbados to make sure when I get back home that I make sure something on the shelves in USA come from Barbados. Those years ago, I was president of the Barbados Small Business Association. And you probably remember there was a particular pepper sauce by Lottie's. We have several pepper sauces. Barbados, there's no pepper sauce in the world as good as pepper sauce from Barbados. Not whatsoever. So much so that in Colombia and them, they decided to copy the Barbadian pepper sauce and call it Barbadian style pepper sauce. So these are things that we have that based from agriculture. I also remember years ago that we were doing something yam flakes. We doing yam flakes from Barbados. And then there was an attempt even to send the pepper sauce to Germany. And when the Germans began to order the pepper sauce, the people we can't produce, and we operate like a ghost. So we need to plan this. And this one.
Part of it is production, and part of it is also making sure that we have HACCP compliant spaces, and that we also deal with these phytosanitary issues. So once again today, I mean, it's just fortuitous.
Right.
I've made the point to the IDC that they need to give me a project cost for what it will take sector by sector for us to make a number of industries HACCP compliant. Because without that, we're only fooling ourselves. Secondly, for 12, 13 years, we've been complaining that we can't export to Europe because we don't have the phytosanitary legislation and the labs, etc. And I've said to the Director General of Foreign Trade, come up with the program as to what it will take so that we can remove this obstacle, because it's almost embarrassing now that other smaller countries in the Caribbean can export fish to Europe and we can't.
That's right.
Okay?
Right. And last but not least, I just want to say this, that over the years, our soil was depleted. And we have a situation where they find that the tests have just come out and show that there's a lot of calcium in our soils and our sugarcane yields is dropping per acre. I want to say to you that we have, our company currently have approximately 20,000 liters of organic fertilizer that we can assist in the country and providing to the country. And I would like the ministry to work with us so we can start giving this out to our soils, because we need it, because the soils need that kind of fertilizer in order to build back up the soils, so that all of these things we're talking about, we can get some good production.
I'm sure you can speak to the ministry, but in addition to that, we also would have received a gift from the Moroccans of 160,000 tons of fertilizer too, that I've been speaking only today again with the Minister of Agriculture about it. Today I did agriculture, as you can hear, and I did industry and international business. So agriculture is coming back to me on Saturday at 10, and I'll raise it with them. But I think you need to be speaking to them directly as well. Okay. But we do, you're absolutely correct, we do have a soil problem, and we have to be able to build back up our soils, and that's what we're working on to see how best we can do it. And I've said to the ministry, not just for government-owned plantations, please. It has to be island-wide. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Good night. My name is Kalia Bellamy. I am an entrepreneur, a journalist, but most importantly, I am a young female professional. I had the opportunity in September to attend the 74th sitting where you, Prime Minister, addressed the United Nations General Assembly. I wrote an article which was published in Nationwide, and it was received very warmly. A lot of people communicated with me on their thoughts about it, as well as my social media publications while I was in New York. So to follow up of Puffy's comment, which I really agree, I want to further the conversation. I have a lot of platforms where I have the availability. I work with a lot of creatives in Barbados who are interested in getting involved, but we just need the extra support and to further the conversation, whether that's about climate change or something that I personally face, which is being a female that enters a room full of professional men or older professionals. And I just want to open that conversation to people who are interested in having the conversation of continuing my article and as a follow-up about climate change as that pertains to the development of Nationwide or just any publication out there.
Can I ask you to meet and engage with two people? One, Roy Morris, and two, Jonathan, to see how we can work with you and others. Look, the reason why these sessions are so good is that I'm leaving here knowing more about Barbados and what Barbadians are doing than when I came. And sometimes you feel, oh, it's tired, you had long days, but this is what makes it worth it. Because I really do believe that within this country, there is a tremendous amount of talent that just needs to be unleashed. We may not always get it right, but we have to stay the course and keep trying. And I ask those of you like yourself to therefore be able to interact with the others and see from that interaction what space that can be created to be able to allow yourself and others to be able to share. I don't see, for example, why CBC at night is not allowing people like yourself to be able to share and have a platform to speak to other young people or other Barbadians. And I think those are some of the things that we need to open up for people like yourself. And by having that green screen, Puffy, and those computers, etc., it may be that you can do your own productions and put for people like Puffy, or I must confess myself now because of my time, that look more at the internet than TV itself or traditional television. So we need to be able to get it out there in as many formats as we can by facilitating the productions. Okay?
Yes, I'm definitely interested. And while I was at the UN, a lot of people were interacting with my page, and I asked them, were they watching the live stream? And honestly, their answer was no. And it wasn't that they weren't interested; it's that it wasn't communicated at their level, and well, at our level. Because I put myself in that room, and I put myself in that position to have that. But a lot of people don't have that resource or that opportunity. And I definitely want to continue the conversation about climate change alone, and as well as simple things as placing yourself in rooms that really you can make a difference.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
So I really want to thank all of you who have come out. But before we close, I had indicated that I really want to invite Oba, you to be able to do some of the closing remarks and to give a perspective as a young Barbadian who has left for some time, your perspective as to where we are, where you think we can go, and what you think needs to be done in order for us to be able to move forward. Because sometimes it's easier to see when you're outside and come back than if you're in the middle of it all. Because I also think that sometimes we're harsher on ourselves without realizing what we have within us and the resilience that we have. So, Oba, I'm going to allow you to close the event. I'm not going to speak any further tonight. After you, Roshana will shut down and thank everybody. But I want, from my part, to sign off and say thank you and God bless, and let's keep the conversation going. Over.
Thank you, Madam Prime Minister. Good evening, everyone. It has been a great privilege to be here this evening. I particularly like the engagement, the format, and I think it's important that we talk to each other. You know, we live in the world, you know, I'm guilty of it too, of using my phone, but there's much to be said about talking. You know, the empathy, the ability to make your point, the ability to wrestle with ideas. And the things that we're talking about is nation building. The Prime Minister spoke about the importance, I'm going to put it in my terms, of legacy. It's so important to think beyond just ourselves and to think about what type of society do we want? What type of world do we want those that come after us to live in? You know, we're bombarded with so many things, especially, you know, now the access to the internet and all these ideas. And the question that we have to face is, who will we be as Barbadians/Bajans? And these type of conversations are important. I learned a lot just from listening to the questions, listening to the answers, listening to DJ Puffy, listening, of course, to the Prime Minister, listening to so many comments. And I think that has to be what we continually do. To listen, to learn, to show interest, to engage. But beyond that, it's important that we do. One thing that I've found is that, particularly in Barbados, we like to have robust conversations, call-in programs, and all these other things. That's fine and good, because it's important that people express themselves, get their ideas out.
But more than anything else, it comes down to what do we do? And what do we do individually? Which then becomes the collective part. It aggregates, and that's how we move forward. And so my challenge to you is just like my challenge to myself, and the challenge that we should always keep in mind is what can I, the individual, do? A lot of people look to just government. There's only so much government can do, regardless of whoever is there. The only limited number of people actually in governance and in the government itself and in any organization who are leaders. But there's so many more people who have the ability to do things. And so that's the challenge that I leave with you all tonight. Hopefully we will continue to have these conversations. I think it's very important. I think it's so very important that we just focus on who do we want to become. Well, first, who are we? Who do we want to become? And how do we get there? And as we continue to have these conversations, we set the platform for our lives and for the lives of those that come before us. Thank you all for coming out tonight. I'm assuming, oh, no, I'm not left to leave that final remark. But thank you very much.
Good night once again, everyone. I want to make this very short. I want to thank Prime Minister Mia Moore-Motley. I want to thank Puffy, Obadiah Thompson, Jason Holder, Honorable Peter Phillips, and the Parish Organizing Committee, the CEO and staff of the NCF, the entire technical team and service providers, Canon, Curtis Goodrich, the media, everyone who has come out, who has supported. And I also want to thank you, the people of St. Lucie, for hosting us tonight. It has been a pleasure to be here, and we cannot wait to see what else is happening in the month of January for our gathering. So thank you once again. I hope you had a great night and get home safely.
And it's a protege,